Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Militant Minis podcast. I am David, and these are my two co-hosts, Mo and Logan. Today, we're going to be talking about Trench Crusade. But before we get into that, let's dive a little bit into who we are and our experiences in the miniature wargaming space. I guess I'll start with myself. So I have been doing miniature painting and modeling for roughly 4 or 5 years. I actually got started with Blood Bowl of all things. Had a goblin team that I bought some 3D prints for, and then I started playing, and then I got in a kill team after that, and then shortly after 40K, and then Trench Crusade.
Yeah, I'll just roll into myself. I'm Logan. I'm probably the most veteran of the group here when it comes to miniature war games. I've been playing and painting miniature games for about 10 years now. I got my start with Warhammer 40,000 and Age of Sigmar in about 2015-16, that time frame there. I played just about everything underneath the sun, from Bolt Action to War Machine, Hordes, Blood Bowl, almost anything under the GW catalog I have touched in some way, shape, or form. As of right now, I consider myself a old world player and Trench Crusade player. It's kind of the basic gist of what I am.
Yeah, I always find this like a really funny group dynamic, because like obviously like I've played a lot of non-GW games as well, but you've hit like all the GW stuff, which is always really funny.
I'm Mo. I think I'm the physically oldest yet youngest in the hobby of the group. I started the very beginning of 10th, attempting at Tyranids. Eventually swapped over to try different armies. Got into 3D printing because I went, this shit is way too fucking expensive. And eventually got into Trench Crusade and other game systems like Old World because of Logan over here.
Yeah, I know. Now we have a really great Old World group, a really great Trench Crusade group, but today's focus will actually just be Trench Crusade, right? Like maybe we'll do Old World later on. I actually imagine that's going to be one of our next things, as this podcast obviously just we're three random people just gushing about some of the things we like, and we thought it was thought-provoking enough that we would write it down, or I guess in this case record it. So
yeah, so we're going to kind of touch on the purpose of this podcast. He kind of already hit it. We're just guys that want to talk about what we enjoy, which is miniature war games, right? Obviously, I'm pretty passionate about it. I love painting. I love playing. This is just kind of an outlet for us to talk about miniatures in general and how we interact with the hobby and how it's different from all three of us. We might expand in future and play into some like just tabletop games in general. Obviously, we play board games and we play Dungeons and Dragons as well together, but that's not the focus of this episode. So,
yes.
So let's talk about what is focus. So if one of you two, what is Trench Crusade?
So I think I'll go first on this one. I personally think the easiest way to describe Trench Crusade, like my elevator pitch. I watch a lot of other podcasts, and there's always this talk of the elevator pitch. If you have to sell your war game, how would you sell it to someone? Trench Crusade is a alternate history war game, which is skirmish size, so you have only a couple of dudes, and you are just delving into trenches fighting each other. So it's this very messed up universe with your very small groups of men mustering together to try to combat enemy forces.
And if
you got your women, you got those great nuns. They may not have the most clothes on them, but
there's women too.
these trenches are egalitarian out here.
That's rated E for everyone.
Rated E for everybody. But if we wanted to delve a little more deeply into what Trench Crusade was conceptually, for those that might be listening that are a bit older to the hobby, specifically coming from the roots of Warhammer 40K and its grim darkness in the 90s, past its second edition, Trench Crusade is more of a return to form of John Blanche style gritty art, really horrific lore. A lot of things discussed today will have actually really horrible implications of being just the most inhumane conditions that you could possibly have. Whereas, we see Warhammer 40k and Age of Sigmar kind of have a cleaner cut approach to it. Trench Crusade has very hard edges that are very gritty. There's also a skirmish style game, so it fits into your categories of like kill team, or I would say like Lord of the Rings combat game, or the Middle Earth fantasy battles game, where you're taking like a squad of dudes, a handful of miniatures, probably roughly anywhere from like 8 to 15 to 20 on your high end, which is, it's a much smaller pool of models you need compared to something like 40k where it's battle size, or like bolt action where it's company sized.
I'll say my piece in the Trench Crusade. I'm not going to hit that as skirmish 3 times in a row. But one of the things that makes me really like Trench Crusade, it's a narrative style of a game. Now, you can play this game in one-offs, just like how you would do a 40k and whatnot, or kill team and such. But you can play Crusades, as the Trench Crusades name entails. But that's what got both all of us into Trench Crusades mainly, is the fact that each miniature matters. How we play, what we do matters as the game continues on. Like, one dude could take a bullet to the head, or in one of the great cases between me and Logan, a cannonball to the face, and die completely outright. Or they could take minor wounds, or even gain skills as time goes on. So one of the reasons why I got really into Trench Crusade, we'll talk about that a little bit later. So what does it take to play a game of Trench Crusade?
Well, so it's what it takes to play a game of Trench Crusade. Actually, deceptively, quite a bit. It both takes very few things and a lot of things at the same time. So obviously, you need the miniatures. Now, Trench Crusade is what's called a miniature agnostic game, meaning that the rules creators kind of have just like officially gone out and said, hey, we don't really care what minis you use as long as they're on the correct base sizes. Convert and kit bash to your heart's desire. With that said, they do also make amazing 3D printed STLs, 3D printable STLs for the game that you can also buy on their My Mini Factory, I believe. They're called Factory Fortress, if anybody wants to go check those out. They're really, really great. Kind of slight rewind really fast. The art is done by Mike Franchina, and then the rules are done by Thomas Pierman, if you know who those are. So that'll lend us a little bit into like also what it takes to play the game, because like 40k games, because Thomas Pierman was formerly a 40k rules designer, you'll need a lot of d6. Roughly, I would say like 8 is kind of the limit of the amount you'll ever need, and you'll need a lot of other like wound tracker, in this case blood point tracker die. We'll get in a little bit of what those are later. And obviously some terrain, which you can either make yourself or, again, buy the STLs from Factory Fortress to, again, make more yourself.
And this is actually where I would consider one of the negatives of Trench Crusade to be, is it has an incredibly high ceiling to get into. Because if you are, if you're somebody like me, I'm not a 3D printing guy, because 3D printing is a hobby in and of itself, right? There's a lot of work you have to do yourself to get into 3D printing, right? You need space, you need all the chemicals and all that. Trench Crusade, by its nature, requires a lot of 3D printed models. Is kind of what the game pushes towards. Obviously, you can go out and kit bash your thing, but that's also just as expensive. So money-wise, I think the ceiling is pretty high. But David did touch on it. It's miniature agnostic, which I think is a plus in its favor.
Yeah. Lets you proxy and stuff as well. If you have like any, you could like I saw actually this is a little bit of a detractor as well, but it's a small tangent that I think aids to this point of it being miniature agnostic. On the Trench Crusade Discord, yes, they have a Discord. You should go check it out. Wonderful community over there. Somebody is homebrewed in Space Marine units to the Trench Crusade universe. giving them rules for the game. So that's pretty cool. They fit in actually pretty well, oddly.
Yeah, I'm gonna slightly disagree about the cost being high because all it takes is one person to have a 3D printer. Given, yes, that is about it cost me $500-ish for the printer gearing set, and then the upkeep cost went off from there. Yes, it is a bit of a hobby in itself, but I'm broke as shit half the time, and I don't feel like paying $2,000 for a new army. So I would rather just be able to 3D print my entire army. So it's
I think that like the point, the point still stands, right? Like the initial cost for you to get that 3D printer up and running is going to be really high, but then after that, if you 3D print frequently and often, you will make up those costs.
Yeah, high entry, good sustainment.
Yeah, absolutely. That's most people. I assume most people in groups have at least one 3D printer from all the different groups I've been with. Even though I mainly play with one. In our local area, most people have at least one person in their playgroup that has a 3D printer. So hopefully you guys do. If you don't, then we can talk about 3D printing some other time. But overall, Trench Crusade, I think, is a relatively decent. It's not too easy. It's not too hard game to get into. Rules-wise, though, pretty simple. So speaking of which, let's go over into the overall gameplay. So how's this gameplay?
Sorry, go for it.
My bad. Overall gameplay. So this is an interesting one because as an official statement from Thomas Pyramin, this was a while back, so it might have changed since then. He originally said that he set out to make a game that was easy to learn but hard to master. And I think he more or less got it right on the head. I don't know if I would say it's extremely difficult to master. The game is pretty straightforward. Like most other skirmish games, it has alternating activations. So how the typical gameplay loop will look like is you set up your board, you set up your two war bands, as they're called. You deploy all your miniatures one at a time, and you alternate. So I deploy one, my opponent deploys one, and then whoever has the smaller war band will go first, and then we alternate activations with whoever is the smaller war band. So they'll go first, then I'll go, and we keep doing that. And your models can do any action that they have available to them, which is a lot different than a lot of other skirmish games. Like Kill Team, you have action points, you have to meet the action points, whereas like Trench Crusade, your dudes just have things that they can do. And I guess the only other thing I would really say about like overall gameplay that's like super important is this 2d6 system, which is actually kind of one of my favorite things about it, because it kind of lends itself to like every roll kind of has this like act of God in it, because base, as in like no modifiers, you are rolling 2d6 trying to get 7, which is a 56% chance, I believe. And then how the game functions by making people better or worse at doing certain actions is it gives them what are called plus or minus dice. So plus dice is you literally add in a plus dice, as in like one extra die to your 2d6. However, unlike games like 40K where you just get like that additional die to add, or some other games, you still just take the base 2d6. So if you're rolling 3, you're taking the 2 highest d6. This can inverse, so if you have negative die, then you take the 2 lowest. Trying to think of anything else. Do you guys got anything else for overall gameplay?
Yeah, I think the 2d6 system is pretty intuitive. Trench Crusade, I want to make this point, how it's different from Kill Team, because I've seen comparisons to it, is in your average kill zone in Kill Team, which is the board that you play on for those that are not familiar with either game, with the Kill Team game. Kill Team plays on 3 floors, right? You'll have your bottom floor, which is the mat, and then you'll have like a story 1, and sometimes you'll have story 2. Trench Crusade plays on, I've seen like on average it's 4 from what I noticed. You have the below, which is in the trenches. You have the base level, and then you have story 1, and some you'll have like a building or 2 with story 2. So it is a different dynamic when it comes to just the way that your boards look. They will have more depth to it. And the 2d6 system, I think, works particularly well in its favor, mainly because when it can lead to more cinematic moments, in my opinion, than just rolling 3 dice or 4 dice as you would in like Kill Team.
Absolutely. Yeah, like, for sure.
And I like actually, not be able to throw a bucket at people. One of the things that really, it's one of the reasons why I play 40K and I play like AOS and whatnot. I play big, stompy monsters because I don't like having to grab ton of dice because I don't like to count. I can only count to 5. I have 5 fingers. If I had to count more than that, I'm struggling. So in this game, like all I'm grabbing is a handful of dice and throwing them.
Depending on what faction you play.
I'm sorry, I'm not playing Iron Sultanate on 20 stories high, and let me just dump a bucket at you.
Dude, yeah, there's some factions that, dude, even Court gets some ridiculous die rolls towards the end of their campaign. You can get range prof, a Phidian rifle, where you're just like, yeah.
I mean, I'm rolling on average maybe 4 to 5 dice. I'm not going anything higher than that.
Yeah.
Logan.
And then
oh, go ahead.
Nothing that we touched on so far was, unless Mo was about to, list building. A big part of the game takes place in list building.
This is actually one of my favorite parts about it.
This is a point I've heard. We talk with our local group, and there are some players that don't like it. Those tend to be the players that enjoy 40K and Kill Team more because they do set loadouts, and they also tend to kind of push towards the competitive side of the game, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you like the competitive side of Warhammer, all the power to you. Personally, not my favorite thing in the world anymore, but yeah. It gives you that freedom to build things that are interesting and flavorful to you. Like some examples are like, this is going into gameplay a little bit, but like deeper into gameplay. But there's gas, fire, and shrapnel, right? These are things that were very, very common in the First World War, where the game takes place. You have gas masks that can negate the extra markers you can get from gas. You have helmets that protect you from shrapnel. And then, well, nobody's really immune to fire. So besides Hell is kind of immune to fire.
Yeah, the heretic forces, we'll touch on them a little later as well. They can brand their troopers with, I think they're just called sigil, like they're called like infernal brands, which give them immunity to fire, which is pretty cool. And then demons, I think, also have that.
So if you're looking for a game that has deep list building with options to build kits that you find interesting and flavorful to a lore that you're driving yourself, I think Trench Crusade is a great thing. And if you also like a pseudo-historical, like Weird War, because I used to play Conflict 47, I think this hits pretty good. And it's nice to see a game that is set in the World War I era rather than World War II as well for myself.
I'm going to wrap it up. We're going into Train with the fact that when I got on the 10th edition 40K, I kept hearing the term simple, not simplistic, or something similar to that term.
It's simple, not simple. Or simplified, not simple was the tagline.
Yeah, this game is truly that. Given the list building, I think is the only portion that is semi-complicated. Because if you've never done any game where it's like open to customize your guys, like Old World, Heresy, and whatnot.
Even older editions of 40K were like this, though. If you're a veteran hobbyist, you're really gonna probably enjoy this return to form, because that's pretty much what it is, right? This is more or less how, to my understanding, obviously I never played these older editions, how the older editions functioned. You bought a model, right? Because that's how Trench Crusade works. We haven't really touched on the point system. They're called ducats, but they're same thing as like 40K, where they're generic points. You spend those points on a model, which is just the body, and then you can give them weapons or upgraded gear. Some models break this form and do come with gear, but most models come with nothing. You're buying an unarmed unarmored guy, and then you can give them gear from there, which is similar to, I believe, older forms of 40k. If you're a newer hobbyist and you've like Mo started with 10th edition, you're probably gonna it's probably gonna be a little jarring and a lot at first, but it's designed this way to let you have creative freedom over what your warband is like. Like Logan touched on this earlier, it gives you a lot of creative freedom to like make a narrative around your warband, which is actually one of my favorite parts about it. Like I play several different warbands. One of them is called the Red Brigade, which is a new Antioch variant. We'll get into what those are again a little later. Basically, they're just a band of elite spec ops guys. And my list, I would argue, is very flavorful. And like, you know, we have like a lot of dudes with stuff that's probably like suboptimal, but is like really cool and fun and makes sense for the war bands, lore and stuff. You know, it's a pretty interesting system.
Yeah. Before moving on, one of the things also with the dice system particularly is with it being super simple and how to do it, things can get, like Logan was saying, with a high ceiling, can get pretty fun. And learning how to stack modifiers, right? The game, like I mentioned earlier, it's a 2 dice roll, try get 7, right? And all we're trying to do is modify that number to go higher or lower, right? One of the best ways to do so is going to be using terrain to your advantage, right? So what is the terrain like? How do we set it up? What are we looking at in comparison to like other game systems?
I think we also need to delve into how do you source this stuff, because this is actually a huge topic to me. Is like, how do we get this terrain? How do you lay it out on the board? Because this is the crux of Trench Crusade, right? It's called Trench Crusade. Obviously, you're going to want to crusade in some trenches, right? So for terrain, I touched on it earlier. Factory Fortress, the company that made Trench Crusade, but a very successful Kickstarter. They actually do sell STLs, and eventually will sell physical prints of trench walls. Important note: these are like just panels that you're meant to put on XPF foam, 2-inch XPF foam. As for like how you should lay out a board, that one's a little more complicated. You kind of just got to reason with your opponent and like make a board layout, because unlike games like 40k, there's no official or sanctioned board layouts, bar like 1 or 2 scenarios that like want you to lay out a very specific board. For the most part, your terrain is probably going to be 3D printed or made by someone in your group. I've seen a lot of good boards. Most of them, I will be honest, are made and not 3D printed. Most of the best boards I've seen are a passion project of like a Midwestern dad who just was like, man, I really like this new World War I alternate history game, and he makes this insane board. If you're in the Trenchfoot Society podcast, Chaos Beard, I believe his name's Johnny. I could be wrong about that. They're very cool dudes. He has made a board like this.
Yeah. The only reservation I would have about Trench Crusade and its boards are, well, let's get into a positive first. It's 4x4. I think 4x4 is a very, it's meatier than Kill Team, which I enjoy. It's bigger than Kill Team's board for the size of game that you're playing, because you're going to have more models than most Kill Teams by the end of your campaigns. And then additionally, I would be lying to you if it was to say that it was easy to fill out a board completely and get it to where you would probably want it to be. Like our group is fortunate; we have multiple people with filament 3D printers that have printed trenches for us, buildings, all sorts of things that we want that you want on your Trench Crusade board. But if you went down the hand crafting it route, that's time intensive, right? That's going to take a while to make.
Money intensive.
Yes, it is also going to be money intensive.
That's the same issue with 3D printing conversation too.
Yeah,
because obviously you have to cut through foam with hot wire. That creates a lot of fumes, stuff like that. So you have to have hobby space for it too.
Man, my lungs are up already. It doesn't. That don't matter to me. It's why I'm the 3D printer.
Yeah. But that is not to say that you cannot play with a sparse board. Trench Crusade does not only take place inside of trenches, right? There are descriptions in the lore of them playing, fighting kind of in more open fields and stuff. But obviously, the game is set up to be played within a highly three-dimensional, pretty high-rising board.
I think a good way to summarize it. I think a good way to package this up of like another aspect of like, obviously if you're listening to this episode, you're probably interested in Trench Crusade and you're probably wondering, well, all right, I got the minis, I got whatever, right? Like I got the minis, I got the dice, I have some terrain. How should I actually throw it down on the board? And I think that's a good end segment to our terrain bit here.
Before I can even say anything.
My bad, Mo.
Terrain plays into how you build your lore bands, in all honesty. Whether it's player placed or you're trying to everything's player placed because there's no official loadout for the map. But whether you want to make it super dense, you want to make it super open, you'll notice that how you place your terrain will shift your guys' warbands a lot. Where they're like, oh, well, I'm getting shot a lot, so I'm going to put bigger guns. I want to be a melee faction, but I can't get there. Or vice versa. You're facing, let's say, the Iron Wall, and their whole gimmick is to shoot from up high. Well, there's so much terrain that they can't shoot the guys. Well, it kind of makes their whole warband feel null and void. So just be honest with your opponents. Place it in a fair way. Try to have elevation. Try to have some depressions in there, right? So that way both players can get something out of it. Because at the end of the day, again, it's a fun game for each other. So fun games come with fun lore, right?
I want to touch on one more thing before we get in there.
Yeah.
The rulebook has like a list of terrain you should play. Like it has like a whole list where it's like you should play a large piece, a piece of dangerous terrain, a piece of hazardous terrain, and those are a great rule of thumb. I think to add on to what Mo was saying, obviously because terrain is super important, so like you'd kind of just need to agree with your opponent on like this is going to be a fun and fair board for both of us. Like obviously if I'm playing Iron Wall and then my friend is playing a melee faction, like if I'm playing a gun line, he's playing a melee faction, we're going to want at least like maybe one firing line, like lane, and then we want a heavily dense board. That way he doesn't feel like he has nowhere to go, but there's some nuance and counterplay between us. The rule of thumb I would give people is like make sure your deployment isn't too advantageous for one side or the other. Basically, this is a handshake agreement game. It's a gentleman's game. You kind of just have to sit down with your friend or opponent and go, hey man, I think this and this, and I think that this board would be better for these reasons, or I think this board would be better for these reasons. That's super important to have this conversation.
Yeah, it's like me throwing artillery wits from my spawn over and over and over again. Totally.
Yeah, on top of like a 6 foot building. Real experience, by the way. Mo actually was one of the first people I played Trench Crusade with, and this guy, he goes, "All right, we're gonna play. I'm gonna put my artillery witch on top of this like 6-story building." That was not fun.
Yeah, and
that witch's name is David's Bane. It's my favorite model.
One of my least favorite experiences in Trench Crusade also had to be with Mo. What was it? Was it your Praetor?
No, my sorcerer.
Your sorcerer. Up and down the building, dude. Could not fail a dash chest for his life. Awful experience.
Everything else in that game. I failed everything else. All 4 hits against your one dude who primed a cannon down my throat and said bye. And took my elite.
You deserved to get cannoned as hard as you did.
This is gonna be a little random. I'm gonna have to bleep Mo so many times, or this is gonna be like an 18+ episode.
Every time I speak, you're gonna hear beep.
Yeah. Mo is a very vocal and colorful individual in a good way. We like Mo. Mo can be mean sometimes. You know, I think almost everybody in our play group, we have like, I think 5 or so more guys who play like Trench Crusade, kind of a soft 5. Like one guy doesn't really like the game, but he plays because he's friends with us. Have all had negative experience against Mo. However, we've all had positive experiences against Mo too. He's a great guy. before we leave our like gameplay and terrain section into just chewing on this amazing lore, I want to say this before we move on. Obviously, this episode, we're not going super in depth to the gameplay. If you'd like that at some point, we can do that in a separate episode. That's just like kind of its own can of worms in general. I know we've referenced some rules that people will probably be unfamiliar with and referenced certain game actions that if you've never played the game, you're like, what the hell are these madmen on about? We would probably be willing to make that an episode. We just don't really have time in this overall episode to really chew on that. But there's plenty of other content out there that'll explain the game rules to you. I know there's a YouTuber called Trenchcore. He's phenomenal and will definitely show you how the game is played. He's pretty good at the game too. Now let's jump into the floor, guys.
Yeah,
exactly. Use your resources.
One more thing before we go into lore. We will be when we go over. We're gonna hit lore. We hit all the factions. We're gonna hit these very briefly because that way we can actually have some content to talk about if we ever want to go into individual factions. We might have a little rant when I get to the Iron Sultanate.
We might. We're definitely gonna probably go over kind of the warband a little bit, and then maybe a few other variants very briefly. And don't expect to hear too much from me in this part because I am familiar, but I am not overtly familiar with everybody's play style. I only played the Iron Sultanate right now, so I'm very shallow in that. So sorry if you want to hear my sultry voice more.
Yeah, this is probably going to be a lot of me and yapping here. I think we're probably the two largest lore heads on this. I would argue I'm probably the biggest one here. But there are a few war bands that Mo plays that I actually do not touch, like the Heretics and Court of the Seven.
I love my demons.
So, do either of you want to get us kicked off?
So, we're gonna hit overall lore first.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
tell us.
I can set this up. It is the 12th century. You are a Templar. You've just crusaded through the Holy Land into Jerusalem, and you have slaughtered the Sultan or the Muslim armies that have stood before you. You rock into Jerusalem. You are looking around, going, "This is pretty nice." And then you walk into a mosque or whatever religious building, and you descend to the deeper dungeons of Jerusalem. And you hear these voices on the wind, and you discover these artifacts, and you go, "What's going on here?" And they start glowing red and start talking to you, and you, in your foolishness and your jury state, you make a deal with the entity from there. And Jerusalem sinks into hell as everybody in Jerusalem dies, and hell opens up into the material plane. And then from there, you have about 800 years pass. And the year is 1918, right? It's straight up into World War I believe so. Somebody.
It might be in 1914. I'll double check this really fast.
1914.
1914. It is. You were 4 years off.
4 years off. It's 1914, right? The Trench Crusade has been raging for 8 centuries at this point. The forces of Christendom and the Muslim forces are locked in a never-ending battle against the forces of hell, which are constantly spilling out. It's called the Hellgate, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Spilling out of the Hellgate and assaulting the forces of Christendom and the Sultanate. Antioch is like the main fortress again of Christendom that is fighting against hell, and then off in the east where like China and them are, that's where the Allah has blessed the Muslim peoples and raised a giant wall around them. You have fanatics from Europa traveling into the trenches or into like closer to the Hell Pit or the Hell Gate to fight in the Holy Wars. These are the Trench Pilgrims. And obviously you have humans that are enslaved to hell. That's the Heretic Legions. And then you have a couple of factions of demons that I'm not going to go into too much here because that's about what I know.
I'm on the front page of the Trench Crusade website, which I love that they just first thing you see is a really great lore blurb. For 8 centuries, the church has waged its crusade to take back the holy city of Jerusalem from the forces of hell. The landscape's been utterly devastated, crisscrossed with thousands of miles of vile mud, trenches, and craters. The crusade is now raged with armies wielding terrifying weaponry, and both sides conjure up supernatural beings of immense power. They are nigh unstoppable. Even with such incalculable might, the armies are as stalemates. This is Trench Crusade. Right? That is the quick down and dirty of what Trench Crusade is, right? And God is in this game hard said he exists. Whether it is Christian God or Muslim God, whether it's like God Allah, either way, it's not stated, as both factions have received blessings from God.
We'll talk a little bit about that actually when we get into these factions too. You'll see that God plays an active part in these crusades. Granted, the true nature of the divine is not we don't know, right? Like Mo was saying, obviously a lot of the Abrahamic religions and the greater Christendom has received gifts or blessings in some way or form from a almighty that has aided them in the Trench Crusade, and so have obviously the Iron Sultanate. They've received several gifts and breakthroughs.
I think the forces of New Antioch just generally cover the Abrahamic religions, so Christendom and Judaism.
Because New Antioch is kind of a boiling pot, almost obviously we're all Americans. You could probably tell from us not having any particular accents. It's almost like the United States, modern day United States, where it's a boiling pot, or modern day UK, where it's a lot of different races colliding, but taken to the extreme and with religion. Because obviously, in Trench Crusade, humanity's on its back legs. They're fighting for survival. And New Antioch is we'll get into it again. I hate that I keep having to say this a little later. But they are recruiting from all around the world. Anybody who wants to fight the forces of hell is joining New Antioch in a crusade. This actually does include people from the Iron Sultanate. They're not super common, but they
I think the Red Brigade, right? They have Iron Sultanate or they have Muslims in their ranks. Right, they recruit from anybody, right? I think the official line has a Prussian guy and an Irish dude. I think
they have pretty much at least one person from every race. Prussia does send recruits to New Antioch. Actually,
let's hit up New Antioch since we're on New Antioch pretty hard. Let's talk about it. So, what is the lore for New Antioch?
New Antioch. Ooh, aha. How do? Okay.
So Antioch was originally the first bastion against the forces of hell. And then, I can't remember exactly when in the lore.
It's a mysterious hell weapon.
Yeah, 1545.
New Antioch.
So 300 years or 400 years into the Trench Crusade, it gets wiped off the face of the map. The Principality of Antioch just gets destroyed.
Yes.
And that's what we know. That's what they say.
Well, we have a couple of more pieces of information. If you look at the official lore on the Trench Crusade website, in 1102, New Antioch actually starts to become the bastion of resistance against the forces of hell. Obviously, then it goes on to fall, and then Christian soldiers just keep holding this line. In the crumbles of New Antioch, they continue to fight the forces of hell and hold this bastion and send people out from this shattered city. So eventually, the Holy See decides to raise New Antioch, Antioch again, creating New Antioch, which becomes the new bastion of humanity. And one of the most interesting things to me about Trench Crusade is I've heard a lot of talk around from other communities about this idea that it doesn't super make sense that the forces of hell still have a fighting force, because in the lore, 1/3 of humanity has bent their knee to the demonic forces and are now fighting humanity. And obviously these demonic forces partake in things like human sacrifice, even things of like a more profane nature. They have a unit that is literally centered around resurrecting people who've committed suicide. So they are a whole bag of bad. And one of the most interesting things is in the lore, they are said to basically just be superior to humanity in every way. It's said that New Antioch could not survive a full frontal assault of every heretic force assailing it. However, there's so much infighting against the forces of hell that New Antioch stands. They're able to fight these one-off armies or war bands. It's just said that they would probably not be able to fight against them as a whole. Also, the most over-the-top insane thing about New Antioch that I love about the actual physical city, and then we'll get into the units and warband lore, is that their walls are constructed with these things called anchorites, shrine anchorites, right? So their wall has these like dudes basically in iron maidens that are like also like dreadnoughts from 40k that are defending the wall and just slaughtering heretics and like yelling battle hymns as they're like getting assailed, which must be the most terrifying thing, as like a random dude who joined the heretic forces. Like, you're a heretic legionnaire, you're like, oh yeah, we're gonna kill these posers, we're gonna murder these like religious guys. And then you rock up and you see these like torture machines and dudes who volunteer to be inside them screaming battle hymns at you as they launch artillery fire at you. Horrifying.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Are the shrine anchorites the same ones that the trench pilgrims can bring into battle?
Yes, it is implied that they are a variant of those.
Okay, so no breaking wheel.
No, they do not have a Catherine wheel. They have a completely loadout from the Mendelist order.
Okay.
Methodist order, my bad.
Yeah, we'll go over that when we go over to our trench pilgrims. So, as our resident New Antioch lover, Mr. Red Brigade, how did they play?
New Antioch is, to me, one of the most interesting factions to play. They are definitely one of the poster boys of the game. They are probably the highest skill faction to play. This is mostly because, unlike every other faction, they don't really have anything that's super resilient. They can take dudes in machine armor, which are kind of resilient. However, all it takes is one cannon or something that ignores your armor, and then your machine armor lieutenant or your machine armor heavy mechanized infantry fall. But this brings us to the main gimmick of New Antioch, of how do they actually fight back, and that is their fire team. So New Antioch is a trained military force. These are the actual professional military forces of the Holy See. So they get this mechanic called fire teams. If you played Kill Team, this is the exact same as your group activation from Kill Team. I believe it was 2016 or Kill Team 2024 that just came out. It's your group activation. So basically, with New Antioch, you get to activate 2 guys at a time. There's a limit of how many people you can group into these fire teams. You have like an amount of fire teams that you can occupy. And they activate together. If either of them fail an action, they both lose their action. Like, they just end their activations, which is the negative to doing this. However, the reason why...
Particularly
a risky action. Which just means that it's a action that will end your activation. They can basically, the whole gimmick is a 1-2 punch. I'm rambling a little bit here. They're centered around this 1-2 punch mechanic. They really, really want to set up people to just go 1-2, and this is because they have a different ability that adds on to their fire teams called Coordinated Fire, which allows them to do this thing called bloodbathing, which is a main mechanic in the game of how you actually take people out of action. Makes it easier to take other models out of action. Yeah, it lets you dink them in the head real good. So you basically, the entire gameplay loop is you setting up with your maybe cheaper models to add some blood markers to your opponent, and then using your kill teams basically, or fire teams to like then deliver the 1-2 killing blow. And your 1-2 killing blow is usually like a dude with a flamethrower and a dude with like a heavy shotgun, it's usually a guy who can stack blood markers and then a guy who can finish the dude off, like a dude with a heavy shotgun. They're super, super cool. I really like the new Antioch forces.
I was gonna ask you as we go into how you recommend to play them, but you already hit that. So
I kind of want to tuck on the Sturmtruppen of the Free State of Prussia, because they're probably I want to talk about them. Okay,
they're inarguably the best faction right now, the best variant for them. So I'll let you gush.
I love the Sturmtruppen of the Free State of Prussia. I have not played them yet, but I am getting an army put together. They are metallurgists and mountaineers. Okay, they are hand selected from Prussia obviously in real life and in Trench Crusade, were back in the 20th century, Prussia, or 17th century up to the 20th century, Prussia's pretty militaristic, right? They're known for very, very skilled military. Same thing in Trench Crusade. So the Sturmtruppen are the elite of very highly trained military people, and they're also metallurgists. So Prussia is protected, like their trenches and their holdouts are protected by semi-sentient barbed wire. Okay, so
you just really want to talk about the snake wire?
I want to talk about the snake wire, and I also want to talk about the tank splitter swords. So they are metallurgists, right? They know how to work metal really well. That's how they make semi-sentient barbed wire. And then there is the tank splitter swords, which is one of my favorite parts of New Antioch, if not my favorite part. So they take a sword, and through special like alchemy and treatments, they make it essentially hydrophobic to metal, right? Imagine making metal hydrophobic to itself. Or I know hydrophobic is water phobic, but metal phobic to itself. So basically they take these swords and they cut tanks with them. This translates in game to you get to retain a 6 when you hit a guy with armor. So if he's wearing armor, you get to kill him way easier.
Yeah, importantly, this means that you're always doing damage, which is not a thing that most other models can do. Certain heavily armored models can actually just take no damage. Those models will always take damage from a stormtrooper with any member of the stormtrooper of the Free State of Prussia warband that has a tank splitter sword, which is one of the reasons why it's so good. I'm like on the Trench Crusade page, and I just wanted to read this out loud really quick. There's a quote here. It says, "To be Prussian is an honor, but not a pleasure." And I just thought that was really, really funny.
Yeah. I'm on the wiki right now looking at some stuff, and I don't know where this comes from, but this line goes incredibly hard. The heretics think the night is their ally. They are mistaken. It is ours.
Dude, the lore on their tank splitter swords is also really funny. Like in Cool, their swords are made out of orcalum and titanium, which is, I think, the reason why it can cut through vehicle tracks, like in other things, with great ease. By the way, that's why they're called tank splitter swords. The Free State of Prussia uses these to literally split tanks in half. They use them to chop off the tracks or debilitate the crew by slicing through the heavy metal of World War I tanks. Anybody who's familiar with history will know that like the original design behind a tank was basically a heavily armored troop transport, which makes this even more insane.
And then,
or you just play War Thunder.
And then they, and then they just stuck machine guns onto it because they realized that, small arms don't shoot through fucking 3 inches of pressed steel.
Yeah, unless you have Hans with a tank splitter sword, and then he slices your tank in half, and you wonder and question your life choices.
This is going to be a fun time talking about New Antioch when we go into our deep dive for them. So, their counterparts their Christian counterpart, the Trench Pilgrims. What are the Trench Pilgrims? Your first faction, particularly.
So these aren't my first faction, actually. I played them first. This is actually okay. Sorry, rewind here. I originally played the Iron Sultanate for my first ever couple games of Trench Crusade. I really, really like the Iron Sultanate. However, Logan now has outclassed me in the amount of games of Iron Sultanate he's played. That's actually the faction I bought from the official Kickstarter. My lovely wife, she collects Trench Pilgrims, and I played Trench Pilgrims in my first campaign to prep teaching her the game. I'm kind of the game guy of our family and household, so I usually learn these games, and then I bug my wife until she plays them with me. Trench Pilgrims are super, super interesting. They are probably the models that you've seen if you've been looking into Trench Crusade. They're the guys with the caprotes, which are those big, sharp hats that kind of look like some other groups of people who used to dress in white who weren't very good people, but I don't really want to touch on them right now.
Not related. Let me make that
they are not related. Very clear. This actually comes from a tradition from Spanish Catholicism. You'll notice that a lot if you actually deep dive into Trench Crusade lore. Thomas Pierman grew up as a Christian and is very well versed on these topics, apparently, because this lore calls out some super specific stuff. Adeptus Ridiculous did like a lot of videos on this where they deep dive into this with Kirioth. So go watch those if you want to know all these crazy references that he makes. I'm not going to touch on them too much. Basically,
you're not as smart.
The Trench Pilgrims are just everyday people who feel a calling to fight in the Trench Crusade. They basically feel like they've gotten a sign from God, or maybe they're sinners and they are like, I need to atone for my sins by battling in the Trench Crusade. So they basically go to the Trench Pilgrims, which is usually led by a Trench Prophet, and then that Trench Prophet will basically go, I have heard a calling from God, and you must follow me into battle. And the hilarious part is they are the most ill-trained soldiers. They're not a professional military. They're not really liked by the Holy See. They're not officially sanctioned by any of the major factions in Trench Crusade. However, they're allowed to exist by the greater they're called the Council of Saints, I believe. They allow the Trench Pilgrims to exist because they are kind of like, well, you guys are frothing at the mouth zealot freaks that just want to run into battle. So we'd rather you run at our enemies than run at us. So they sanction their pilgrimages to fight in the Trench Crusade. And because they're very disorganized, they actually don't fight in very large groups. Their larger groups are called processions, which are usually led by a war prophet and castigator sometimes. The war prophet is just their leader who preaches the word of God or the word of wisdom that they feel that they've heard from God, whereas castigators are like their enforcers that make sure you feel the loving embrace of God. Yeah, the castigators they're actually one of the few models that can hit their own teammates. There's no real use for this in game, which is kind of funny. Like, it does give you a benefit. Like, that model doesn't count towards your losses because you can route in Trench Crusade. If you fail, that's called morale. If you fail morale, then you route. If you kill a dude with your with your castigator, that model doesn't count as having died for morale. And you get a bonus to your next morale check. I'm thinking about it. I might be wrong about him not counting, but you still definitely get a bonus to your morale check. I guess if you have a really cheap dude, you could just be like, well, time to get beat, Larry.
Also, if you really need to fight, let's say, okay, so one of the reasons why, right, is if you're winning on points, but you're getting yourself slaughtered, it's just, all right, Jimmy, we need to have a morale booster. Your brains on this wall is going to just lay out the plan from God, and we just need to see it open wide.
Yeah, you're gonna motivate the rest of your troops. all I'm saying is that like when you're playing this game, trench pilgrims tend to not have like a ton of units. I see very few moments in this game where you're like, my castigator's still alive. I'm like beating my opponent, but I'm about to rout. So I'm gonna make myself have to take a morale check and shank my dude to get a bonus to that roll when I already have a bunch of bonuses from my leader being alive.
We will stay.
Yeah,
we will
fight
stay
to the last. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the different processions of the trench program. So there's base trench programs where you get a smorgasbord of units. You have these things called stigmatic nuns. They're kind of like your dog replacement. They're nuns of the Holy Stigmata, which I believe is a reference to the positions of which Christ was crucified. So stigmatic nuns actually drive pins into their hands and feet, so they are constantly bleeding, and this bleeding somehow empowers them to fight better in combat. So they actually do more damage the more injured they are, which causes them to not wear armor when they run into battle. So if you ever look up that official model, it is a woman, and she is tits out.
Oh yeah, brother.
There is an armored one if you don't necessarily like the nudity model. I think it's actually just as good, if not
that's
better.
The Cowers model.
No, that's the sane human. I'm kidding.
That's the sane human being one. Yes, I'm very aware.
You know,
I never claimed to be mentally sane.
They
never
play
once
the
claimed
game.
to be mentally sane.
Trench pilgrims play the game more or less like standard Trench Crusade. They have like this model called the Shrine Anchorite, who gets this thing called the Catherine Wheel. It's just like this brutal device that they use to maim their opponents, and then they get another follow-up attack. They're like they're more melee oriented, if anything, but they are the most or second most fleshed out faction for sure. They are just kind of your standard skirmish game. You have a couple of ranged people. You have a lot of really cool abilities. Now let's get into like their specific processions really fast. The main one that I want to touch on is the Sacred Affliction. Procession of the Sacred Affliction. I actually believe that leprosy is a sacred affliction, which stems actually from like the Bible and like Jesus showing that he was the Son of God by curing a man of leprosy. So they intentionally give themselves leprosy, which is insane. And this works out for them apparently. And they're also the melee oriented faction of the game. They can give their normal guys these things called anti-tank hammers. Usually this is an item reserved to your more elite models. And the Sacred Affliction goes, here, normal man, we put a shaped charge on a stick. Hit that other guy in the face. And they're super good at doing that. They're very, very strong. They have like another really funny and interesting ability called Wrath of God, which is, again, kind of calling to that idea that God is real in this universe. And the lore behind it is that he empowers this random trench pilgrim. And this empowerment allows him to not be wounded by traditional means. He can still be killed, but he is more or less immune to pain, which makes him very, very hard to kill in game. In game, the effect of this is just that he cannot be stacked. You can't stack blood markers on him, so he can't be injured. You have to just outright kill him in one shot. Basically, you have to headshot this guy. He's a frothing at the mouth zealot, kill you with his anti-tank hammer. There's a couple other processions. The Calvate of the 10 Plagues, which is a reference to the 10 Plagues of Egypt. They are kind of implied to be like a chosen of God, or if not like a weird subsect of pilgrims. They're kind of more niche, so I won't go into them too much. The other one that I think a lot of people are really going to be interested in is the War Pilgrimage of St. Methodist. All this does for you is you get 2 Shrine Anchorites, and then you can kit them out with new gear. We kind of talked about the Shrine Anchorites earlier, which is the only reason I want to bring up the War Pilgrimage of St. Methodist. Their lore is that St. Methodist basically manufactured the Shrine Anchorite, which is a special prototype of this stuff called machine armor which is just this really strong power armor. And they basically made these again after their original factory was destroyed. They remade their factory and made a better version of the anchorite armor that they now make for their war pilgrimages. So they can upgrade things like their diesel engines, their they can ornate them, they can give them better gear, hydraulic feet, which all give you different various benefits in game. And these are your standard beat stick models. So War Pilgrimages of St. Methodist kind of gets your one and only beat stick models almost in the game. There's a couple others, but they are some of the toughest and hardest hitting models in the entire game of Trench Crusade. And with that, I believe that leads us really nicely into Iron Sultanate, which I'll let Logan take this one since he has played with them a lot more than I have.
Yeah, so the Iron Sultanate is, let me pull up their full name, because their full name must be said. They are called the Great Sultanate of the Invisible Iron Wall of the Two Horns that Pierce the Sky. Kind of a mouthful, but yeah, that name is metal as hell, to say the least. They are essentially the conglomerate of the Muslim peoples of the world, held up behind the Iron Wall. So once Jerusalem falls, right, obviously everybody in the region begins to flee or fight, and the Sultan at the time, basically, he pleads with God or Allah, and Allah blesses them and raises the Iron Wall around the Sultanate, and I believe it is in Baghdad. What is where it is? I think it legitimately, like in the lore, it's named as Baghdad. It's raised around Baghdad, and then the Sultan throws the call out to the Muslim peoples of the world to retreat behind the wall and fight and live there. Millions of them die while this is happening, right? All the Muslim peoples of the world rush towards the Iron Wall to get behind it. And
it isn't Baghdad, goes all the way down to compass Mecca. And yep.
Oh, Mecca's inside of it as well. Okay, so yeah, all of your Arabic Muslim keystones for a faction are here, right? Where it differs is they're the alchemists of the world, right? They have alchemists and assassins that are world renowned. So the alchemists, they get to do this thing with. I don't know if they experiment on people and demons, but they create two things that are really well known: the Lines of Jabir.
Well, I guess it's
and the
those are types of homunculi. They do create smaller generic homunculi that's actually their final rite of passage to become Jabirian alchemists. They have to make a homunculi. If they fail, the homunculi kills them. If it's a failed homunculi, the homunculi will kill them.
And then, yeah, so the alchemist part is not particularly my favorite thing about the Iron Sultanate. My second favorite is the assassins. The assassins of the Iron Sultanate don't even live inside the wall.
Yeah, they're actually kind of technically their own sub-faction, which is super interesting.
Yeah, they live outside of the Iron Wall high in the mountains.
Yeah, they live in Alamut.
Alamut.
Yeah.
In the mountains, which is
right outside the wall.
It is outside the wall. That's very important. It is outside the wall. However, this place has never been invaded by heretic forces.
Well, successfully invaded. Whereas everything else around the Iron Sultanate has kind of fallen and or been destroyed by heretic forces, the Assassin Conclave has not been. Actually, the stories and the lore are heretic warbands venture up the mountain quite often.
Yeah, in the lore they get like lost, and then they get slowly assassinated one by one. Like it's implied that I think one or two warbands have like made 2 Alamut's gates, but by the time that they've made it there, they were like a ragtag group of what they once were, or like a skeleton crew of what they brought in, and then they were just picked off by the rest of the assassins.
It's the meme of, hey, Death Commando, you know how you assassinated the Pope, that you assassinated one of the great political leaders of Islamic Nation. Hey, can you go try kill the old man up in the mountain? He's just an old guy, right? Just an old man.
I actually love that you brought this up. I don't remember his name, but the leader of the assassin couple is
it's the old man. His name is the old man. He's the old man.
Not the old man. He has an official name.
Oh, okay.
I think his official name is like Alamut. It might be. I know he has an official name. But he is said to be immortal, which is really, really funny and interesting because they don't know why. Yeah, it's I don't really want to look for it right now. But yeah, the assassin's leader is like full on an immortal man who teaches all these people how to be assassins.
And then there's one more force within the Iron Sultanate, because the Iron Sultanate is kind of this weird conglomerate of a few different military factions that work together. But the common thing that holds them together is that they are all Islamic, and they like the Sultan. But my favorite force within the side of the Iron Wall is the Janissary, and they take real life Janissaries, which are like when Muslims capture Christian boys, they would train them to be like essentially elite shock troopers. Same thing here, but replace Christian boy with heretic child. From what I understand, they don't discriminate. They will capture heretic children that are still very young and train them as hard as they can to make them the Sultanate's most elite warriors. And once they pass a series of tests, they start getting drugged up by the Jabarian alchemists, and they become extremely strong, resilient.
I haven't pulled up here. They're chemically brainwashed.
They're Space Marines for real.
100%
They pretty much are, like, at least like lore of indoctrination wise, Space Marines.
They go underneath the knife. They get the space Marine treatment of hey, the Emperor, or in this case the Sultanate, is good. Don't betray us or perish, mortal.
And then they are armed with some of the better weaponry the Sultanate can provide, right? They're armed with heavy swords, siege jezzails, given good armor, gas masks, helmets, and sent out to, well, be the elite shock troops of the Janissaries.
Which, funny enough, that is actually an elite thing. And Crusade, it's hilarious that it also goes into the lore.
Well, what's really interesting is in the basic version of the Iron Sultanate, Janissaries aren't elite. They can become elite, but they don't start with the ability to take very, very good armor. Their main thing is that they are, I believe they're fearless, I think, or they're like
they're immune to fear.
They're strong.
Okay. They're strong. Yeah, they're immune to fear, and they're
very
strong.
good
and they have +1 dice on both.
One thing I want to add that I think is really interesting here is in the official lore primer, in the lore section of the Trench Crusader website, it says, though the Sultan uses them sparingly beyond the wall, some Janissaries are sent to the front lines to bolster the cause of the Sublime Gate. It says, like, here that they traditionally actually use them as bodyguards. They form his own personal bodyguard, and then they use them to bodyguard important officials. So,
yeah. Which is a stark, like, I just want to describe the Janissary to you because the next guy I'm going to talk about is, they're called the Zebs, right? And this is essentially, how do I if any of you are familiar with Warhammer 40k's Eldar lore, the Guardians are like a armed militia. The Azebs are fairly similar, but where the arming and procuring of them is left to their house, right? So obviously, the children of the Muslim families will the Muslim families will come together to arm their son or daughter or whoever with arms and dress them properly, and then they will go join the war bands that either venture out beyond the wall or defend the wall. They are essentially yes, a lot of them die. That is a big thing about Trench Crusade is your war bands. You will they take lots of losses. It's part of the Grimdark universe. Things a lot of people have to die to really show the scope of the universe being the way it is. Another cool thing about the Sultanate is they get armed with Jezzails, which are they're just slightly longer range rifles, where I think a bolt action rifle is 12 inches of range.
18 or 12,
I believe.
No, I think the Jezzail is 18. I can look it up.
Go ahead.
Delving into it.
Oh, then yeah.
Yeah, the Jezzail is 18, which is So the Sultanate and the Azebs use a traditionally, I think Jezzails were actually traditionally an African firearm that migrated over, but this is where they show up as a historical thing. Trench Crusade is just full of micro historical references. So if you like history, you'll delve into the Trench Crusade lore and the armories and stuff, and you will.
Yeah, I'll link the
smorgasbord of just fun stuff.
Official page there. And their My Mini Factory in the YouTube video.
Yeah. I don't know much else to talk over on the Iron Sultanate besides starting to go into their warband variants. So yes, the Iron Sultanate is the way I would describe them is they're probably the most elite of the of the faithful Abrahamic factions. Whereas the Trench Pilgrims, they have a few elite models like their Anchorites and their oh my god.
Actually, sorry, Anchorites aren't elite.
Yeah, they're really big. Have a few elite models.
They're elite, not officially, keyword wise. Yeah, so
elite type models. Expensive, armed well kind of models. Antioch gets pretty close, right? You guys have machine armors, but you can take pretty cheap dudes. The Sultanate kind of pushes you towards playing lower model count armies, right? You can obviously spam Azebs, but you don't particularly want to. You want to play lions and brazen bulls and janissaries and sappers.
Quote, Superman and Friends, where he had one of his models in the assassin.
He had the Master Assassin, who was kitted to the nines, and then he had, I can't remember the amount of Azebs. It was 11 or 12.
Oh yeah.
It did not
so yeah, you can play him like that, but
I was
almost all the
his opponent there. I was playing Dirge. We'll get into Dirge later. It did not end well.
All of the lists kind of have some sort of focus on either a elite dude, taking a number of elite dudes, or in the Iron Walls case, it wants you to play. Well, all of them just want you to play lower model counts and put more emphasis on the individual dude. You don't want to be playing a bunch of expendable things. Even in the Defenders of the Iron Wall, one of your Azebs can pick up a a really good banner. It's called the Banner of the Desert Wind, and it turns your one generic dude into somebody you really want to protect.
Only normal guys can carry troop banners, your standards or your battle flags. They can only be carried by normal dudes. Your leaders cannot carry them. This includes musical instruments too. Elites, other than I think like one or two factions that don't really have a normal troop that can actually carry weapons, cannot carry their troop or musical instruments themselves. Their troop flags or musical instruments themselves. It has to be their normal man.
Yeah. Alrighty, you want to say anything else with
I hope you like shooting. Like if you want to play a extremely shooting faction, the Sultanate is where it's at. Be it through cannons or siege giselles or alchemist ammunition. The entire kit of the Sultanate is geared towards shooting, whereas like the Trench Pilgrims are geared towards melee faction, and Antioch is geared towards like doing combined arms with like your fire teams. The Sultanate is firmly placed as the, if you want to play a Abrahamic religion faction and want to focus on shooting,
they are Tau
playing,
Crusade.
You would want to play the
pretty
Iron
much.
Sultanate.
If you're familiar with 40k Tau, they are pretty much the closest thing.
Yeah, they easily have the best shooting.
No, there is.
I don't know
every
if any
time
heretic
you
faction
roll,
shoots better
I'm not
than
questioning whether you're going to hit me. I'm just questioning if you're going to crit, because he grabs, on average, like 10-something odd dice to throw on my face, and he's just like, is there 2 6s in here? No? Okay. Anyways, wounding time. That's how that plays. You are guaranteed. And unlike most other factions, right? So one of the things like with like other factions is, okay, let me see what type of advantages I can get to hit. Iron Assault never need to really worry about, particularly Iron Wall, never need to really worry about that. They will hit you. If they don't, it's an act of God that says, nah, you fucked up.
I'll disagree with this a little bit, but that's because they have to set it up. It's not like they just get these bonuses.
No, it's fair.
They definitely have to set them up. Iron Wall particularly gets bonuses for being a height advantage to their opponent, and the other way they stack dice is by being in proximity to their other guys. So if you have any form of blast, they do not like blast. If you have blast, you can definitely very easily get 2, 3, sometimes even 4 guys in one hit because they want to be grouped together. But they're really fun. I've played them too. They're definitely like your staging army. You win the game by how well you prepare your guys for the engagement.
Yeah, they can be countered by things like artillery, which is Heretic Legions, my faction, one of my 2 factions I play. So lore for the Heretic Legions is these are your average men, women, children that said join hell or were forced to. Emphasis on the children part, because child labor is not illegal in hell, so. It's actually recommended. Their tiny hands can get into the tiny places, you know? Just ask the British. So.
I don't think anyone in the Trench Crusade universe is actually that adverse to child labor.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm pretty sure they all do it to some capacity.
They don't arm them and push them to the front line, though.
Take this grenade and run at the enemy.
This is a little bit of a tangent. But New Antioch 100% raises children who can hear the voice of God to translate the words of dead saints to them, in which, in official lore, these children then age 1 year per heartbeat.
They're also skinned,
which means that in a minute they're probably gonna die.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. They're also skinned completely and put over with synthetic skin. Bar that, because it's the heretics' time. Anyways, no. So these are the dudes that went, okay, we're going to walk into hell. So particularly the Heretic Legion, they're fighters, are the guys who said, all right, let's put on our big boy boots and walk in. And depending on how far you get... it's their version of pilgrimage. Depending on how far you get, depends on your rank and such, what type of stuff you get to have. David mentioned earlier, that these guys recycle suiciders into special characters. We'll talk about those guys though when we get into a deep dive of Heretic Legion. These guys play like just Trench Crusade the faction. You can play them in almost any which way you want. Their base faction is my personal favorite because I don't like to be limited. You want to play heavy elite and to say these are my 5 dudes. Good luck. cool. You want to play with 1,001 little men that have bolt action rifles because that is a viable strategy. Because all it takes is one lucky bullet to go right between the eye sockets, and that big guy you spent half your money on. My dude worth $10 killed him, right? These are all viable strategies. Heretic Legion is the most well-rounded in the way. They don't. There's not one particular thing they do better than anybody else, besides just being generic faction. They're also, I think, one of the coolest looking factions. I personally like playing them with few heavy infantry, handful of my big boys, and maybe 2 to 3 little dudes who go do random go. Because in the game you have things like go capture this objective, go open this crate, go detonate this building because there's something important in that building, blow up their supply lines, right? I don't want to put my dude that's worth 1/3 of my points to go do that. I'm sending some random dude named Joe Smo to go do that.
Yeah, so this is Heretic Legions are actually super, super interesting. Like Mo said, they're the most fleshed out, well-rounded faction, which leads to this really, really interesting thing. They kind of have something for everybody. If you're just getting into the game, Heretic Legions probably the best starting place. You can almost do no wrong. They have really, really good big centerpiece model choices, and even their average guy is not that bad. The Heretic Trooper is really, really good. You can upgrade them to become what's called a Legionnaire, and they get better at shooting or better at melee, I believe. I think you get to pick.
They walked 10 steps farther than the other dude did. What the hell?
I think Heretic Legionnaires are just guys who actually had training before they
maybe
went in. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into that too much. I've read, I think, most of the Heretic Legion lore. It's actually pretty interesting. I know some people don't really like it. I really like it.
Yeah.
I want to preach the other half of the warband that Mo doesn't play, because as we move on with this podcast, you'll notice that Mo, hilariously enough, loves playing if the game's a 12 model game, Mo goes, I want 3. I want 3, and I want them to be the strongest things in the world. I want to play my giant and giant friend. Yeah. So to preach the other half of this, the other thing that Heretic Legions are really, really good at doing is actually spamming Heretic Troopers. It's actually one of their most efficient strategies in other variants. They have a variant called Heretic Naval Raiding Party, in which they get access to submachine guns. They do lose a lot of stuff, like Mo said. They become a little more limited. You can't take a unit called the Warwolf Assault Beast, which is one of your best staging pieces. You can kind of make sure that nobody messes with you or funnel people to a certain area of the board. But if that's not your thing and you don't want this giant werewolf model, which in case I would probably call you crazy, you can take 12 normal dudes with submachine guns and shields.
Yeah, to counteract kind of what I how I like to play. This is how I get countered. Like I said, all it takes is one dude with a random bullet that just goes right between the dude's eye. You just spent a lot of money on this one model, in-game money, but it depends where you go get yourself. You spent a lot of in-game money to make this one dude really, really big, really, really strong, and just pew. So that what Dave's saying is right. The submachine gun spam is really, really cool. But you have to also understand you are not playing with one particularly strong dude, right? Yeah.
Well, that's where they shine. They out-action you. If you're playing a spam list, you have to understand that the advantage to you is the fact that you have a bunch of dudes that don't matter to you, who are easily replaceable, and when your opponent starts to run out of activations because they only brought 5 models, you then have 6 uninterrupted turns of shooting them, which is what makes them so strong, is because it lets you stack those blood markers and kill their models kind of just randomly without them being able to do anything.
Yeah, you're kind of staying there while your model's on the ground, writhing in pain as they continue to dump bullets into your skull.
I do want to touch on this minorly. It's very important to avoid this trap of over-kitting out your models or under-kitting them out. Depending on what faction you're playing, you either can or cannot get away with doing. And this is something that like you'll just have to play around with to figure out if you're really able to avoid or do this. Like in essence, the more you play, the more you're going to get a feel for what I'm talking about here. But just know, taking 3 models and kitting them out to the 9s is actually very rarely a good idea. We exaggerate a little bit with Mo. Still does take other dudes. It's not actually just 3 guys kitted out to the 9s. It's 3 really strong dudes with a lot of gear. However, they have support from other cheaper models that Mo's bringing to go do things he doesn't want those models to do.
You guys had 12 to 14 models in the field. I think I had 6 or 7. And you were...
Yeah, you're pretty much...
Yeah, that was me playing. That was me playing 7 chord. This one where I'm purposely playing in a way where I'm playing smaller dudes, and I really feel how each person's less impactful, but I do feel like, I can actually do things. I'm not limited into, I can only do this one thing or kill this one model on my opponent's side, right?
Yeah, actually, let's jump into court. I feel like we've actually somehow touched Heretic Legions really well, so let's jump into what the court actually are. Do you want me to do the overall, and then you can hit the deep dive?
Yeah, send it, man. Or Logan hasn't said much. Do you want to say anything before we pop over, Logan? Because you didn't say anything for heretics.
The trench ghosts are really cool. So imagine if you're a heretic trooper, and you go and you fight the holy forces, and you die on hallowed ground. Well, the earth will not suffer your body to be there, and obviously, your spirit kind of becomes trapped because it's hallowed ground. So you're kind of forced back into your body, and you lurch up as a trench ghost. You're still dead, but you are semi-corporeal, and you are just like driven by greed.
Importantly, no one likes you.
So these guys, right? What Logan's talking about is the heretic ghost. The ghost
trench ghost.
I'll look it up. Trench ghost.
Yeah. Trench ghost.
Nobody wants you. Nobody likes you, and you are the undead faction. They're in the Heretic Legion for some reason, but they are the undead legion.
They are because they're Heretic Legions because originally in their lore said they were Heretic Legionnaires. They're Heretic Legionnaires that I don't know for sure if they die on hallowed ground, but that sounds right. I do know that they are not wanted by hell and they are not wanted by heaven. So their spirits repossess their bodies, like Logan was saying, as undead soldiers. So like technically they're officially more zombie-like than they are actually like ghost-wise, and a lot of people paint them as ghosts, which I still think looks really, really good and really interesting. But yeah.
Well, they are semi-corporeal. That is like I think that is the lore how they state it, and I think that's also one of their rules is semi-corporeal. But yeah, essentially they'll sense each other and they gather into gaggles and they just attack anybody in no man's land. Like they inhabit no man's land and attack anybody there, and then they take everything that they can gather and they stack it into giant hordes. So they're like weird goblin-esque in that way. They're really unique, really cool concept for a World War I game.
Yeah, they are the only true neutral.
Yeah, the trench ghosts are
in the game.
The trench ghosts are super dope.
It's like chaotic neutral if you're using the D&D alignment chart.
I meant true neutral as like you god nor hell. Like you exist, you just hate the living because their entire thing is hatred for living. But we'll go more into that when I want to save some of that. Let's talk about the court. So go ahead and give a brief overview, David.
All righty. The Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent. So very interestingly, right? In Revelations, I believe, I don't know this for a fact, and I don't want to look it up, there is some reference to a covenant with God sorry, I said Revelations. I did not mean Revelations. Just in the Bible in general, there's some reference to like the original fall of demons creating Lucifer and creating Satan, like creating hell and stuff. And there's original, like some reference to those demons or like angels, fallen angels making a deal with God to say that they can no longer walk the mortal plane. In Trench Crusade, this is a canonized event. The forces of hell have a covenant with God, of which they have said, we will never send a true-blooded demon. And they kind of cross their fingers while they do this behind their back. They're like, we solemnly swear we will never send a true-blooded demon onto Earth, lest God intervene and smite us down. So, hell, being evil and whatnot, kind of just decide to cheese the system. They make these half-blooded demons and they send them in. They're like, they're not full-blooded, so we haven't broken the covenant. So the Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent are these basically like half-blooded demons that are like dukes pretty much in the courts of hell. They're like dukes or princes or just some other kind of high-ranking officials that they send into battle. So these are your demon or demon-like models. They're super, super cool. They're really interesting. Their lore is kind of just like super over the top. They have praetors, which are these like, that's one of their warband leaders. They're these massive winged demons, half demons technically, that are just there for the slaughter. They have the Hunter of the Left-Hand Path, who is this like half demon who can teleport and like walks between planes.
The most busted model in the game by far.
And this is why my buddies hate me, because I don't drop my hunter because I think he's funny. I'll talk about why he's really funny here in a little bit, why we think he's the most busted in the game.
Man. It's not even think. It's like
okay, it says the elitist.
Yeah.
Anywho,
well, Mo, you're a power gamer.
This is crazy slander. For some more background on the group here, Mo is the only member of the who actively and unintentionally power game, and he guises it as haha funny. And I had a conversation with Mo one time. I was like, Mo, haha funny. Like if you go, oh yeah, I'm just doing a haha funny, and then that happens to be the most optimal thing, you're still power gaming. Like if I'm like, dude, it'd be super funny if I just beat you every single time we play this game. Hey, look, that's power gaming.
Okay, this is one reason why I'm not playing court.
Yeah.
It's like running 5 balloons in Fantasy China. That is power gaming.
I hate the Fantasy China. Anyways, God bless. I hate those balloons. Anywho, that being said, yeah, I do.
Oh my God.
I don't intend to, for the most part. That's why, like, I'm purposely not playing court. I'm staying away from court till it gets rebalanced a little bit more. Because I don't. The court is one of the few warbands. Also, this is my starter warband. This is why I started off with, which I would never recommend court being your first one because it gets kind of complicated. If you're trying to learn how to play the game, you're trying to learn how to like make a good warband, court's not the one to do it because it forces you to go down this heavy elite path. And you never really want anything to get promoted bar one single model, right? So you can play it and spam and whatnot, but you have the worst infantry model in the game called the Wretched. These two say I have the Oak Fiend, which is your secondary one, but this is your Torturer, right? And what they do, Court's biggest gimmick, besides being big elite, is they have magic, right? I can cast Fireball. I can strip you of all your armor. I can cause you to drop all your weapons. I can cause you to eat your weapon, right? Stuff like that. It depends on what sin you play, because you have the 7 sins you can play. And each one has special magic.
That's actually one of the most interesting mechanics, too. The war bands of the Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent dedicate themselves to a sin. Like, because in Trench Crusade lore, obviously the 7 sins are actually like physical, I wouldn't say people, but households. They are physical like entities that live like in houses. This world. Granted, they live in hell. I'm pretty sure there's like people who are like the demon prince
they
of pride.
They are the households of that, right? And that's why, like, when we talk about the Grail,
I'm saying that there's a head honcho who embodies the sin and is like considered like envy.
We'll talk about
like
when we
Moloch.
get to
Moloch
Beelzebub and the Grail about like those ones, but
well, it's different. I'm talking about like the 7 sins are physical demons that exist who command
and
Households
they
of
can be
warbands.
changed, but yes, they are the game lore sense.
I mean, are you guys talking a biblical sense or a? Okay, yeah, because like in biblical, or not even, because the seven sins aren't exactly mentioned in the Bible, but in religious texts.
Solomon thing.
Yes, Solomon, Dante's Inferno is like, and a bunch of other like religious texts or semi-religious texts mention them. In the game and in lore, they change hands of who's like leading that position of the deadly sin. Whereas in like those traditional texts, there are demons that are that.
Well, that's
sin.
what I'm saying.
The ones that
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure in Trench Crusade it's the same thing. That there's like a head demon that does do that. They function
as the court player. Yes, you were right, but it's a position in a household, and that can change. As Beelzebub was wanted for a different position, I think it was greed or anywho, no, it was gluttony. He was wanted for gluttony. With that being said, each one of these sins have different abilities. You get different magic you cast, right? Well, magic is cast via blood dice, right? As you wound a model, you can get blood dice on that model, and you can use that in all the factions, just base gameplay. That blood dice is used to make their actions worse, right? In court, you don't really use their blood dice to make their actions worse. You use their blood dice to cast spells, because you cannot use the blood dice that's on your demon models, particularly. But you have two non-demonic models that are your Yoke Fiend and your Wretched. But those are such pathetically weak models that you don't ever really use them. Like they're the Wretched is probably your closest thing to your Heritage Trooper, your Trench Pilgrim, right? Your Yeoman, your Azeb. But they have debuffs into it, and so you never really want to use them. So you really you are kind of funneled into, okay, I have these big elite models, I have to use it. They are the Knight equivalent. If you play 40k, they are the Chaos Knight equivalent to Trench Crusades. So, I'm sorry, like they are really powerful. They are. Some people are like, oh, they're really weak. They really ain't. As a person that's plays courts ever since what was it 1.2 we played in, David? Yeah,
I think so. Also, I don't think I've ever heard. I've heard people complain about them not having glory items.
Well, I've
never heard anyone say that.
So I've heard them call them weak, and here's the reason why. In all but one sin, the sin of lust, you do not start with blood. You can't just immediately off the rip cast Fireball, because you need to get some blood dice on some things, right? And so it'll take you on average between 1 to 2 rotations of people getting blood dice, etc., to be able to cast Fireball, which is one of your most powerful spells. Well, the issue is you don't start with it, so you can't cast your spells until like mid into the game, and it gets worse. Lust gets around that one, but people call it weak because of that. You just don't immediately get your faction ability off the rip. All right. But if you like to have the biggest model on the board, because they do have the biggest models in the game, I believe. Because I do have little man syndrome when it comes to my models. Then court is for you.
I think another important note is the sins actually do drastically change gameplay. I know one of them gives aura. I think it might be from your Saint, but he gets an aura of ignores armor.
That is lust. Lust basically says anything within 6 inches that is not any enemy model within 6 inches, no armor. Bar 3 armors in the game. There's only 3 armors in the game that ignore that rule.
I think there's more than 3 actually now, because there's Damascus armor, Hellforged armor, Holy Icon shield, Holy Icon armor, and then I think there's
very few things in general that cause that, and they're very hard to get your hands on, right? Super hard to get your hands on. Overall, your Saint, which is your centerpiece model, who is not elite to start off with, so you want to get them elite as soon as possible, but you have to play this game where you don't fill up all your elite spots. You have to get a Saint as soon as possible. It's a really weird list building restriction, right? Because if your Saint dies, that is on average, 230 ducats, 280 ducats down the drain, and your warband is roughly on average between 900 and 1500 is where most people play most games at. So
yeah, this is actually an interesting one to me because I've heard a lot of other court players actually argue that the Desecrated Saint is really bad because he's a point sink. I know Mo disagrees with this one, and I don't know if I fully agree either. But I definitely think that it is a heavy point investment. And I don't know if racing to promote it is always the best idea. But if you can, it's really great because then at least he doesn't go away anymore because he is such a harsh investment.
Yeah, and he's going to be targeted to all hell. Pun intended.
Yeah, he's like, I might not. We'll see if I can find a Saint model or the Saint model.
I have the Saint.
But
I have him. He's painted up. He's painted pretty badly. But I have him. He is massive.
Yeah.
He is, I think, the biggest model in Trench Crusade.
Yeah, I think it's either him or the Amalgam.
He's bigger than the Amalgam.
I think they're about the same size,
but he's bigger.
What is he on? 60?
He's on 60.
Yeah, he's hefty. He's huge because I think the Amalgam is only on 50.
There's no hiding the Saint. Like, you can't hide him from being shot at. It's really hard to because it's almost true line. It's true line of sight off of people's faces to your body, and the Saint's so thick that you're not hiding him. Right, so he's gonna get targeted.
Yeah, this one isn't like required to play Trench Crusade, but it is really helpful. A laser pointer. It's a true line of sight game, so it means that if you're the head of your model can see any portion of someone else's model, you get to shoot that model. Like, no ands, ifs, or buts. Now, with that said, you should establish some ground rules with your play group because, trust me, some models are so huge that like they can hide behind massive buildings, but whatever, like maybe a gun barrel on them is sticking out.
We came across that with yours.
With a gun barrel.
Yeah, with your Amalgam just being so big.
Yeah. The Amalgam has a ton of guns coming out of it. There are some other models. Because obviously, like with Trench Crusade being a miniature agnostic game, it really encourages you to kit bash, model your models how you want. If you model this sick model, right, where you go to the nines, let's say it's a Desecrated Saint, and you like make this like insane over the top model, I don't want to punish you for making a cool model. Like, that's super huge because this happened to 40K a while back with modeling for advantage. Don't be that guy. Don't play your opponent as that guy where you're modeling advantage. Nobody wants to walk up to a Trench Crusade game, look at the board, and see a bunch of Azebs laying prone in the sniper position or something.
Yes.
Like onesie twosies is probably okay. I think the end story here is just talk to your opponents. It's the same thing with Court. It's the same thing with Heretic Legions. It's the same thing with Iron Wall. With Court, you might not feel comfortable playing with Court. Just talk to your opponent beforehand. Be like, hey man, I don't really like playing against this like just I get shoved list.
In the last campaign we played, I was the only person to not have a single loss, and it was 100%. I had a tie. It was we tied. So Core is 100% in a very powerful position. As much as I hate to say it should get nerfed. Can't wait to see it be more balanced so I can play it again. Because Trench Crusade is a campaign game. If you're coming up with this OP list, right, and you're never losing, right? You're never losing. You're always gaining power. It's just going to snowball effects, right? Snowball effects. So I love my courts. I love playing Lust particularly because I like to say you don't get to have armor. I like to be able to have my faction abilities start in the game. There are other sins that will change the way you play. Some more techie, some more killy. Greed is about just stacking some blood markers. Gluttony is about debuffing your opponent, right? Pride is about stacking blood markers. Greed, I don't think, is one of the sins you can play because as they're a sin you can play as Heretic Legions. Funnily enough, but bar that one, right? They are very fun to play as long as you are in a play group that understands. Hey. If this is I'm going to play a really powerful faction. there's no way really around playing this powerful faction without really power gaming it. You could lose if you drop all model, right? That model might be very critical, like the court, the hunter of the hunter of the left-hand path is your like character sniping model, right? You lose a character sniping model, whereas
I think a more accurate description of her is a harasser. She, like, if you've ever played like any kind of Moab, Honor, or anything like that, there's character roles called harassers, which are meant to be quick, nimble characters who basically antagonize the opponent so that everybody else can do their thing. That is what the Hunter of the Left-Hand Path does. She's one of the fastest models in the game because she can teleport. She's one of the most resilient models in the game because she has a keyword tough that doesn't go away.
No, she doesn't. What she has is
absolutely she does.
I always play without it.
To argue otherwise is just factually.
No, I didn't realize that she had tough.
Yeah. If everything goes your way, you might be able to kill her.
I'll be like completely transparent on that. It is once per turn, but you can give the Hunter of the Left Path as long as there's blood on the table. That is the caveat. Which, if you're playing correctly and you're being aggressive enough, shouldn't
it's not
be a problem.
Tough. No. It's way worse than that. It is not tough. It is ignores the damage. You can roll a 12. You can roll boxcars, which will kill any model in the game.
Okay, Mo.
Yeah.
Slow down here really quick. I want you to say this again. So tell me what tough does really quick.
My bad, G. Tough. You get knocked down. You get blood marker, and you're sort of tough. You ignore one out of action play.
No. But if I roll a 27, right? If I bloodbath you with a weapon that already does 3d6, or let's say it already does 4d6, and I bloodbath you, and I roll 5d6, and I roll a 30.
Yes, you will still go down.
Guess what? If you have tough,
you don't
don't die.
That's fair.
That's the same thing, right?
You don't go down. You don't fall, because here's the thing with tough. Let's say I'm up high, right? Because you want to keep your fucking hunter up high so you can get more and more buffs. You could strip tough off of getting shot. He falls off the building, hits the ground, and dies. I just say I ignore it.
Unless you're pride. If you're pride, you also ignore it.
I don't play anything else besides Lusk.
Yeah, pride. Actually, it's called the ability name. Sorry, I just thought this was really funny, and I get really quick. The ability is called Too Proud to Fall. It is a spell, but instead of falling, you just don't. Like that's pretty much what it says. It says, when this model would otherwise fall down for any reason, it instead doesn't. It has other effects too. I just don't really want to get into that.
We've got a lot about how much I love it. I think it's OP, but
the main point we're trying to get at is the sorcerer is an extremely tough model, and she's very good at it. She is easily the most efficient model in the game, and I don't really know a great way of balancing her, like maybe making the beast cloak like once per game, but that's brutal because now you like have a spell on her that doesn't really work that well.
If I remember correctly, it used to be once per game.
I think it was always once per turn. I think if it was like we might have read it wrong, but we might be able to find an old edition of the
I might be able to try to look back onto it. Anyways, before we go on about how much I love Court and how much they hate it, Black Grail, the last faction to talk about. Well, technically second to last faction to talk about.
Alrighty, so Black Grail, I think, is the next one we're going to be talking about, right? Man, so I feel bad because I've been talking a lot this episode.
Go for it, dude. I'm just listening because I am not nearly as familiar.
I am our resident Black Grail player. When I started playing 40k, I was like really into Death Guard thing, and when I was looking at Trench Crusade, I had this really tough decision because I didn't really have enough money to buy all the factions like I wanted to. So I had to pick a couple. Black Grail was actually not one of the ones I picked. I ended up getting them from our good friend Mo here. He printed them out for me so that we could play some games of Trench Crusade.
The $600 variant that had all the STLs. Woo! That was painful.
With this said, I do want to talk about this really quickly. I do want to encourage people to attempt to buy the STLs and send them to your friends instead. mostly just because the Factory Fortress miniatures team made this game with a very, very small team. They're a very great group of people. They're very active in like the circles that they are in, whether it be the Facebook group or their official unofficial Discord server. They're a very cool group of people, and they deserve your support if you like the game. However, I also want people to play the game, so play it however you can.
It's the reason why, like, I don't sell my 3D print models for Trench Crusades online. Like, I'd sell like other models online, which I'm not going to link my shop on here because that's not the purpose of this podcast. But like, I'll print off the models for my homies, right? So, but I directly support these guys because I like the game. I think it's great, but we'll talk about that later when we talk about recommendations or overall, like why we shifted towards TCE later. Yeah.
We'll come back to this in a minute because I really actually do want to talk about this before the end of the episode. But sorry, without beating around the bush, let's jump into this Black Grail, the lore. The Black Grail is a cult. Actually, they're called the Cult of the Black Grail. They are worshippers of Beelzebub. And they are the replacement of the Black Death in the Trench Crusade universe. So around the same time the Black Death would have started, the Black Grail arises for the first time in the mortal realm. And the mortal realm, or plane, whatever you want to call it. And it is essentially a zombie virus. It is it's like this thing that Beelzebub made. Honest, I'm too much of their lore. I know, sorry. I'm a heretic.
Local Black Grail player not knowing his lore.
Look, I've read quite a bit of it. I have not read all of it. Beelzebub, like Mo was mentioning earlier, I confirmed was supposed to be on the seat of gluttony, and he just doesn't sit on the seat anymore, but nobody has replaced him. So he is technically still also the sin of gluttony. However, he's kind of off doing his own thing with the Black Grail. He is the only force that isn't really aligned with the other forces of hell. The Black Grail constantly fight the other two heretic factions. They are seen as terrifying even to heretics, even to other demons. They have a city called Echaron, and it's a city that they've taken and infested with the Black Grail. And heretics do not like going there. The few times they have to go there, it makes them extremely nervous. They're like terrified of being there because the dudes who live there are absolute freaks. They basically just spread this disease in a cesspool and take these mutations that they get from it, which are oftentimes very graphic and brutal.
Before you go on with those as well, what they want to mention is a lot of people try and make a comparison. I think, my bad if you're about to hit this, make the comparison to Papa Nurgle. These guys don't have the funny ha-ha of a Nurgling's fart. These guys are just, here is death. Welcome it or perish.
Yes. This is a huge aspect of like 40K and a difference between 40K and Trench Crusade in general. 40K has now lent itself to like being kind of calming itself down so it can hit a wider audience. Trench Crusade does not want to be this way. They kind of are just like, we're going to make the universe we make. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, it's not for you. So
there are not comical tones in Trench Crusade. There is not a and to kind of, I don't know if you touched on it. Maybe I just didn't hear. The Black Grail is like one of the most prolific threats to the Levant. Like, whenever the Black Grail goes on the rise, what little infighting the Abrahamic religions have between each other, it almost all stops. It is go time. We must stop the Black Grail.
Yeah. What is the Levant before we continue on? Because I don't think we've mentioned the Levant once.
That is the lands that are not tainted.
Yeah.
The Levant is literally just the lands that are not tainted.
The other thing about the Black Grail, right, is it almost wiped humanity out. It was actually probably the other, like one of the other couple of times that humanity almost died. And funny enough, Joan of Arc is what stops the Black Grail. I can't remember the exact lore behind it, but she defeats the missionaries of the Black Grail, and the disease is driven back.
The Black Grail make these things. Are they called like revenants or whatever? It's the really big dudes, massive dudes. I can't remember what they're called, but okay. So, like they've only made like two of them successfully. Joan of Arc killed one. That's where Joan of Arc is like, instead of getting martyred, she ends up dying fighting.
Martyred a different way.
Yeah, she ends up dying in this fight with a Black Grail creation. And then oh my god, are they called Metachrist?
It was a hegemon. They're called a hegemon of Beelzebub.
Yeah, a hegemon. Oh my god.
Yeah, Ursula Rex was finally brought down by the combined forces of the living saint, Joan of Arc.
And then the Paladin Project, yes. And then one of the Paladins died, killing a hegemon as well. The Black Grail has attempted to make more, but they have been stopped every time.
Yeah, I think they have a couple of them, but I think they might have like one left or something. They might all be dead. Because there is a Grail faction of which you play the remnants of a hegemon's warband, where you worship that ancient hegemon instead of Beelzebub himself.
It's kind of what I had for the Black Grail.
Yeah, I mean, as far as how they play, they're probably the most interesting and different from the rest of the factions, other than maybe New Antioch. They're the only ones that kind of break the form of how the game plays. They deal in these things called infection markers, which function the same way blood markers do, except they progress themselves. They're self proliferating, progressing. So whenever you inflict them to an opponent, whenever that opponent activates that model, they gain another infection marker. So most factions also don't really have a way of getting rid of them, so they kind of quickly become a problem. And this leads to the Grail kind of having this like horde or wave style of playing, where they want to send in their dogs first. And usually they either infect these dogs with like a disease, which is the Black Grail, and they send them at their enemies to spread these infection markers, and then they capitalize on them. Basically, they then make their second advance, which are their dudes who are a lot stronger and can hit you. They're a very close range faction. They don't have a lot of super long range. They recently got a rework that actually kind of fixed this. They have a unit called a Plague Knight, which are kind of aspiring to be lords within the Cult of the Black Grail, who can now take a pretty much like an upgrade or a vow that gives them a special or an additional ability. One of them is taking weapons from other warbands' armories. We haven't really touched on that. That's a part of list building, but you can, when you choose a warband, you get assigned an armory that you can take your gear from. So the Black Grail armory lacks any real long range. Your longest range weapon, I believe, is 24 inches. Whereas you can now take from other people's armories, which have weapons that are like 48 inches or 36-inch range. And actually, in our most recent finished campaign, me and Logan squared off. Mo decided to concede the victory, even though he was winning pretty heavy-handedly. So me and him squared off, and my Plague Knight did have a grenade launcher that he had stolen from some heretics. So gameplay-wise, they're really fascinating. They only have one variant too, so they only have 2 play styles currently, and the other one is kind of broken right now, but not like incredibly so. But I can definitely see people who are smarter than I am turning it into one of the strongest factions in the game. It's called the Dirge of the Great Hegemon. You basically turn the infection markers into a economy resource, similar to how the court does, except you get way more units, because like normally Black Grail is kind of balanced by the fact that their everyman unit, which is a thrall, they can't take any guns. So you don't have you have one unit that can take a weapon, which is called a Herald of Beelzebub. They're one of the fastest units in the game. However, they're extremely weak. They're very easy to kill. They can't wear armor, and they don't have strong or anything, so they can't carry heavy weapons. So they can only carry like normal guns, and those are your only unit with a gun in Black Grail. In the Dirge, this is flipped on its head. You actually get to equip your thralls with weapons. And a huge tactic I've seen from a couple other players is you give your thralls heavy weapons, because in Dirge you can command your thralls to do stuff. So basically you have your thralls position themselves on their turn, and then when your Plague Knight goes, they essentially will command your thralls to do these activations. So they'll be like, all right, thrall over there, fire upon this man. And to do that, all they need to do is have a infection marker on the board and be within 18 inches of the thrall they're commanding. So they take the infection marker off the model and then may command their thralls to do it one of like 4 actions. They can make them move again, charge, fight someone in melee combat, or shoot at somebody. So it's pretty good, because there's also no limit to how many times you can do, and there's no specific phasing on when you're supposed to do this. So you can, at any point during your Plague Knight's activation, they may command thralls to do something, which is why it's so strong, because you can very quickly feed a loop of a Plague Knight. Let's say he has whatever, like a putrid shotgun. He runs up to within 12 inches of a model, shoots the enemy model, does an infection marker. He then takes that infection marker off of him, commands a thrall with like a viscera cannon to shoot at him, and then he hits this guy, does 4 more blood markers, and now your Plague Knight can charge and use those blood markers to fight this guy and hopefully kill him. It kind of lends itself to this insane loop of you constantly being able to stack these and have several activations in a turn when it's your opponent's turn. Dirge is really, really interesting to me, but it's kind of the same problem that like Mo has Port, where I don't think I'll play it again after this most current campaign we did, because it doesn't feel good for your opponent. It's kind of like if your opponent started talking to you and you're like, shh, I'll take it from here. I'm going to activate 9 times before you get to activate 1. But as per my recommendations for like Black Grail, for the normal Grail, I am personally a huge fan of the Lord of Tumors. He's really expensive, but he is so much fun. He rolls with an obscene amount of dice in melee combat. You can give him this thing called the Axe of Beelzebub, where he just cleaves people in half. You can give him Grail Devotees, which give him like flat bonuses to his rolls. He's a great model to have as your centerpiece. He is very fun to play. He's very flavorful to play, because he can be your like solo beat stick.
I don't think he's very fun to play against, but it's just me.
Okay.
Alright, Horus.
Okay. Actually, your opinion is invalid here, for I am the War Master. Anyway. Yes, my name is Senor Horus Heresy himself. All right, I think I'm good on my yap fest about the Grail. Do you guys have anything you want to add?
No, not particularly. Besides the Herald of Beelzebub, that model needs some help, bro.
It is shockingly weak, actually. Yeah, it like has no protections. It's like really good at shock assault. Like you can, because
I don't think the model's actually bad. It just every single time we played,
it died immediately.
It would like around a corner and go, I'm here, miss its shot, and then I'd go, Janissary, bang, and just like split his skull open. And it's just like, dude, poor fly, man.
Yeah, it's not particularly good at shooting, which is the problem. So you probably want to give it a flamethrower, but then it only can shoot 8 inches with the only flamethrower available to the Black Grail.
He's and he's also more expensive than a Janissary by a bit. So
yeah, that's true. Anything from you, Mo?
No, I like I mentioned what I said earlier. I like how TC is treating Grail like an actual playing faction and not as tee potty humor.
Yeah, they're also like, okay, I've painted an entire warband of Black Grail. I hope so. I completed a campaign with them. The Lord of Tumors was so like, I got to a point where I was actually like gagging and retching painting him.
I love your Lord of Tumors too. Like, I can't wait for you to show a picture of it, because when he, so when I had to mention this one, when David first asked me to get him the Black Grail models, right? Lord of Tumors was like the immediately first thing. I'm like, okay, this is why I want to deliver him first. I didn't realize the Lord of Tumors comes with 2 little dudes as well. One dude,
he came with the Grail devotees,
absolutely slurping on the juices coming off of.
Oh, I'm definitely putting an image of that. That's like a huge meme in the community. If you're listening to this and you are a member of the Church Crusade community, you know the he slurp meme of the Grail devotee drinking the pus.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You don't. It's disgusting but hilarious. Yeah. After we said that they were like really serious.
Yeah. No, but then the other one is like, I remember when he painted that model, it was just homeboy on the base by himself. Pretty cool. And then he was like, hey, man, you forgot to print me these things. I'm like, oh my, I did? Okay, let me get these to you as soon as possible. And he ripped the guy off the base, put it back on so we can add these 2 Grail devotees. And it became a much different looking model. It became so much better. It is such a great sculpt. That is the one of my favorite things about the Black Grail, even though it's not even how they play. It's just one of the models. Although I will
all their sculpts are actually phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, we haven't really talked about the official sculpts too much. The official Black Grail sculpts are some of my favorite sculpts in the line, minus the Iron Sultan sculpts.
I'll talk about the 3D printing of these when we get to our recommendation of TCs, because there's some issues on that side. But they are some of the best looking models to 3D print I've ever gotten the chance to print.
Yeah. I mean, there's a funny story behind how I figured that out. I figured out Mo didn't didn't print out the Grail devotees for me. So I originally asked for the Lord of Tumors first, because I wanted to enter it in the Trench Crusade. This was like a while ago. If you are a Trench Crusade fan, you might remember this. You might not. If you're a newer fan, you probably missed it. There was a Trench Crusade official painting competition to celebrate the STLs finally all being released. So I was painting up my Lord of Tumors for this painting competition, and then I was looking at other entries, and then I noticed that they had 2 little dudes on the back. Some of them had 2 little dudes. Some of the few guys who entered Lords of Tumors, and I looked at them and was like, oh wait. And then I scrolled to the official model page, the model, and I zoom in, I see these 2 little dudes. I was like, oh, he forgot to print those for me.
The last thing I would say with those ones, we didn't mention blessing dice earlier because they're not as important as infection dice are to Black Grail. There is a interesting feeling whenever you play a faction that has access to a currency in a game, or a power, an ability in the game that no other faction has a ability to interact with as much.
Infection markers shoe that bill to the T.
It makes them both very, very unique. And there is a somewhat feels bad, but TC made it in such a way where I don't ever feel like the infection marker portion of Black Grail, the things that it sucks to play, it's just the you were -1 to injure. Perish.
I think this leads us into the TC overall portion of this. Overall, I love TC as a game. It is actually one of my favorite games I've played ever. It's insanely simple, right? It's super easy for me to onboard somebody and go, all right, we're going to play a basic game. Here's how it works. Granted, I would argue that both me and Mo are victims of wanting to win. So we're actually really bad at teaching people how to play the game, because we both have I'm guilty of this. Mo is 100% guilty of this. I watched him do it. of we tend to accidentally overdo it and like push people away because you don't know how to play the game, and then we're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z and beat you up really bad.
So with the guy I put some way we got back in, he's playing Saint Methodist, so he brought 2 Shrine Anchorites to the game.
Off the bat, too, which
we advise him not to. Let's put it this way: we advise him not to. And he's like, "No, I'm going against Court. Where Court is, the same way. You have 2 big thickums on my side too, right? That you go and kill them, right? So it's just a one-on-one. I rolled Fireball. I cast Fireball very first thing because I'm playing Lust, and immediately down. Oh Lord, voice break. Immediately down. One of the Shrine Anchorites. Actually, I stripped one of Tough, and I downed the other off the rip. Then he goes his turn. He didn't pick up the Shrine Anchorite, and then I just shot it while it was down, and destroyed, killed it. And then they repeated for the other Shrine Anchorite when round 2 started. I also rolled insanely hot. It was boxcars on boxcars that day. That's where people started thinking I had some weighted dice, because it was boxcars. And it was only for him, though. For some reason, it was only for him that I kept on rolling boxcars for. But yeah, it was somewhat unfortunate. I was trying to show him, like, hey, don't just put all your eggs in one basket, even though I am the biggest sinner of this, the biggest hypocrite of the play group for this.
The issue is, right, with the War Pilgrims of St. Methodist, you kind of want to upgrade into your second Anchorite, because Anchorites are really expensive, and they're even more expensive in War Pilgrims of St. Methodist because you can give him more gear, and you can give him guns, you can give him weapons, and like giving them like a good loadout is also kind of hard because like it's just really up to like what you kind of feel and want. Like if you want 2 ranged Anchorites, there's nothing like that. They actually function just fine. Like I knew a guy who he had an Anchorite with a gas sensor, which is basically just a gas bomb. It's like an aura of gas. And then he had a trench mortar that was like launching mortars down the field. And it worked out pretty well for him. The reason why I don't think I would recommend starting out with 2 is because, one, if one of them dies, you've lost a ton of points that you just really can't make up immediately. You can like reinforce to get those back. But also like without that extra layer of protection, while they are still pretty hard to kill, they're just not as tough. The moment you break a dude on the wheel and you get that like pseudo double tough, they are one of the most resilient models in the game, and I think any centerpiece model, like by far.
Of all the you kind of cut it out there. Of all the centerpiece models, they are the tankiest. But yeah, overall,
I think they're the best. Not even just the tankiest. The base Shrine Anchorite, I just think, is the strongest centerpiece model. Period.
Right. Yes, overall recommendation for TC. I'll talk about the modeling aspects afterwards, but like gameplay aspects. How do y'all feel about TC?
Yeah, so my thoughts are I would be lying to you if I said I thought it was just like the greatest game ever. Obviously there are things about it I don't particularly care for. I think some models are like so overtuned it makes them unfun. Like it makes playing against those warbands unfun, just like outright. Like oh my god, I forgot it.
Hunter the Left-Handed Path.
Yeah, Hunter just like single-handedly makes a gameplay experience go from I am having a great time to this is awful.
Yeah.
So if you give him point blank where he can use his bow in melee,
if he gets point blank, I just refuse to play that game, actually.
I also don't particularly enjoy some of the other like funny things you can do, like dash out of cover, shoot, and then move back in. But that's just like a gameplay quirk. I don't think it's like ruining it. But overall, I would say the game is super intuitive, extremely simple to pick up, and its complexities make it deeply enjoyable to to somebody that has more experience and more gaming. And additionally, like being able to customize so much is a big plus on my side.
How do you feel, David?
Being completely honest, it is, like I said before, it is probably one of my favorite games that I've ever played. Obviously, I'm not entirely blinded by. I don't have the full rose tinted goggles. They're maybe just like peach tinted. They're a little pink. I really, really enjoyed Trench Crusade. I was kind of one of the driving forces that got our group into it, other than Mo. Mo obviously like kind of was just like, hey, if you guys want to play, like I'll print you a warband, or like I'll work with you to play the game somehow. And then we had another friend who was nice enough to print us some trenches that he had. So those two combined efforts, and then plus me and Mo like going out and actually
advertising it too.
Like getting people into the game. I just love the game so much. It's so much fun. I have a blast playing it. I can't wait for like the rules to finally be finalized. Like the rule book's just about to come out, so we'll no longer be in playtesting. Because quick caveat about everything that we've said about this game so far. The game is technically in playtest. It is not technically officially released. It has playtest rules that you are allowed to play with, and it will be a living document. They have said in the past, I don't know if they'll stick to it, that the rules will always be free online. But if you're a little nerd like I am in like physical books, I bought a physical book, and they admitted like maybe a month ago that they had just finished making the book. So now they have to do all the printing things. I don't know how familiar like the average person is about the printing process. You have to do this thing called pre-flight, where you like send your completed rule book to the printing company. They have to approve it, and then they send it out. So I'm excited for that to come out, and I think once that comes out, that'll fix some of the problems I have with the game. But for the most part, I love the game. Like Logan said, it's super intuitive. It's really fun. And I love the modeling aspect. Granted, I'm really bad at it, just being completely candid. Like, I'm not a kit basher. I'm not particularly creative when it comes to, like, modeling. But I love that you can model. Like, Mo's probably going to talk about a little more about the 3D printing aspect here. The kit bashing aspect, we actually have one member of our playgroup who did this. And, like, his models still look phenomenal. He actually just did Trench Ghosts, and it was just a combination of like Warhammer kits, bolt action kits.
AOS
I think that's actually all
he used. AOS. He used the spearhead for AOS. Bolt action.
Yeah, he used the Nighthawk spearhead,
and then a
bolt action, and that was it.
No, he had.
Well, that was for
the spell he used as
AOS spell.
Yeah, AOS spell.
Yeah, it was also. Just being completely frank, it was really expensive.
Yeah.
Like, he used a lot of kits.
Going away from the kit bashing portion of it, going into the 3D modeling, right? So before I go through, I want to take a quick second, like overall what I think. I like about the TC. TC is the first skirmish game I got into. I tried Kill Team. It didn't really feel too good. But what really sold TC to me is the campaign aspect. I think like your warband having its own story as it progresses is the best thing about TC, right? That your warband is very unique to you. Nobody else is going to have the exact same warband you have, right? It'd be extremely fucking difficult to make that. So that's why I love TC particularly. It's also, again, like I'm newer. I think that was the fourth board game system I ever played. First being 40K, next AOS, next Kill Team, and then now TC, and then I've done a couple now later. But let's talk about the 3D printing aspect. The sculpts themselves are very beautiful. Printing them is a pain in the because the people they sent their concept for models they wanted to STL out to a third-party vendor. That third-party vendor did not verify air pockets, did not put the drainage holes correctly. There's a bunch of small things about the models that if you are not proficient in 3D printing, you are going to have a very bad headache in. There's actually a few of the models I gave to David, or actually he bought for me, that had errors in them, but neither one of us noticed it until we looked back and forth, right? Or like how one of the biggest things is feet. For some reason, feet don't like printing on these particular models. I never had these problems with any other artists, but if you can get the sculpts without issue, and you can print them, or you're willing to put the headache into like readjust the supports, and get them all to work by itself. They are some of the most well sculpted STLs you can get. That are very highly detailed. They are extremely detailed, which makes them really great. Particularly for resin. Yeah. Not good for filament, unless you're willing to put in that extra.
You could do it with filament. There's a community member that a while back, I'm sure if you just put a ping out, like an APB out
the filament one
in the Trench Crusade Discord, he made a low polygon version.
Yeah.
Using the base model that he tested and was able to print with filament.
I might try that out. I didn't know that was out there. But if you want those like highly detailed stuff, just keep in mind, it's going to be a little bit more effort to make these STLs than other things. So I hate not recommending the original source. I would recommend if you're just starting to learn how to 3D print. You don't know what you're doing. Find some agnostic versions of these STLs. Like there is a really great naval raiding party, artillery witch that's phenomenal.
Westphalia Miniatures does some. Those are pretty good, but they just have the same problem with the feet thing. So it's not just Trench Crusade too. Also, I want to say this: the community is really great. If you're having issues printing these models, I can guarantee you, if you put a feeler out on the Trench Crusade Discord, or even with the third-party miniatures, like third-party printing service, they'll help you out.
There is a whole system in place that you can get the repaired models, etc.
They'll even help you figure out your settings for your 3D printer. There's like plenty of communities that'll help you do that.
Yeah, the issue.
Obviously, they're not going to print them for you.
The issue I had. This is kind of why I have a little bit of a bad taste, because I had a personal bad time with them. It was the TC models that broke my printer, and I'm having it repaired. Given like if I would have taken my time and actually like go through every single STL,
you had a leak, right? You had a leak, didn't you?
I had a leak because it was a puncture. It was a micro puncture. I couldn't see it. Didn't know it existed, right? Because usually, like, I'll do a feel over like, I'll get some gloves. I'll put a feel over, and can tell if there's things still in my vat, or take my plastic spatula. I'll go over the vat and I'll just like feel for any bumps. There's some micro tears, bumps, but that came from air pockets, where say suction pockets, right, where a little bit got left on the plate, and then when they went to go touch down, it punctured through. And my printer, which I also got a little bit lazy with, but my printer has a auto sensing feature where if something like that happens, it will stop the print. But it was such small amounts that it didn't notice it until like months later, and caused a very more massive issue. So that's permanently very impaired. But there is a community out there. There is the developers out there of these STLs that will help you out, because they don't want to have a bad rep, right? Your customer service for the STLs is pretty good. You will have to verify that you actually bought the STLs and not just, hey, can I have the free STLs, right? That's a little bit of a system, but like they are willing to help you if you're willing to put in the effort.
I do want to mention though that this is something that like not every sculptor does. I haven't heard of I haven't heard this being a normal thing.
No, it's not. I've not I go to Gamak a lot. I go to, where are the ones I said? Gamak's one of my favorites. I used to be a vendor of their prints, but I just didn't make enough being a vendor for them. Gomok and Archvillain Games are two main ones I subscribe to on Patreon, and they have some of the best sculpts ever. Gomok will work with you from time to time. I've never had an issue with Archvillain Games, so I've never had to ask them. But the larger printers, larger companies will, or I should say companies, larger STL makers will. The smaller ones won't. But you've got to know which ones you're buying from, which ones you're getting into.
That's like the point I was trying to get at of like the security you take with buying from Factory Fortress is that they are now a vetted team. They've successfully launched a Kickstarter. They are successfully fulfilling a Kickstarter in actually a pretty impressive time frame. If you back the Kickstarter, it might not seem that way. Most Kickstarters either sometimes fail to actually meet their deadlines by a massive margin. I'm talking like a 1 to 2 year late margin. Trench Crusade has been 1 to 2 months late.
They also went from massive or $5 or $50,000 to $3 million.
It was like $60,000 to getting like $3 million worth of orders. So obviously their timeline got moved back a lot. The other thing I want to mention really quick to end off our segment about TC before we get into our last topic before we end the episode is the models are on pre-order right now. You can buy them physically from, I believe, onlygames.com. So those aren't being sent out yet, but if you do not want to deal with a 3D printer or you don't have a 3D printer, within the foreseeable future, you will be able to buy the models physically from Factory Fortress with their insurances, which from what I've seen, their customer service team is phenomenal.
Please take pictures of all your models when you get them.
Well,
and
report an issue. You'll see the issue. You should see the issue. This can bring us to our final topic here, which is just a little bit about why our group actually switched to playing Trench Crusade and why we keep seeing people shift from 40K, because we've seen a significant decline in 40K players in our local group.
So yeah, I'll lead this one off as well. So I'm from the beginning I mentioned I'm a big GW fanboy, and I still gladly am today. But I would be remiss to not mention that Warhammer 40K is not particularly my favorite system in the world. And what makes it different, what makes something like Trench Crusade different from Warhammer 40,000 10th edition, for myself at least, is both are extremely simple games, but it feels better to play Trench Crusade. That customization portion feels really good. And then additionally, it isn't being updated every month, every 2 months, and there's a balanced data slate every quarter. Plus, there's a new tournament pack, and then additionally, here's an FAQ every month or so to fix things that are broken. Personally, I don't like competitive 40K, and that's just part of the big reason I migrated away, because that's what 40K largely wants to sell to, and that just isn't me anymore. So
for me, I gotta say it was because like even when Trench Crusade does update, sorry, I'm gonna add on to what you were saying. Even when Trench Crusade does update, it's never a major update, right? It doesn't change like core fundamentals of the game. It'll add stuff. They'll like move around a couple things that were like working really difficult. But the moment you open that document, it's the same game. It's the same guts. It's the same core interactions. Usually they've just tweaked some stuff around. Like the biggest change, they even called it a rework, was Black Grail, right? Because I played Black Grail way before.
Yeah, or like 1.2.
And I had a lot of fun playing them. And then they did the rework, and I didn't play Black Grail for a really long time. So I went back, played them again, and I was like, oh my god, these guys are way different. They're not way different, sorry. They're like the same, but better. Like they just kind of tweaked them kind of arguably a little too far, but
same, but different.
Yeah, they were like the exact same faction. It was very easy for me to get back on the group. Oh yeah, I like these things still. I really like this. We got some new items that were kind of needed. And then now we have like a lot more fun of a list building experience. That kind of brings me to actually why I switched. I really like having a customizable list. I don't know if I could really ever play a game again that doesn't do this. Like even Kill Team, looking back when I used to play Kill Team, the teams that I really liked were
you cut out.
I just really like to play the teams that had a lot of options. Like for example, I really like the Adeptus Arbites. The Adeptus Arbites can go, oh yeah, I want to be really shooty, or I want to be a bunch of dudes with shield, or I want to take these specialists and I want to drop these. They get a ton of options. They're very customizable. And I'm a sucker for the Judge Dredd aesthetic, but I won't get into that. And Trench Crusade just caters to that perfectly, right? I'm like, oh yeah, I want to run a weird narrative list that uses these aspects of this lore thing. So then I do that with my, with my lists, and I think that's why I like it so much. I think the other thing is just, I kind of love the aesthetic. I love that like gritty, dark paint style thing. It's let me like grow a lot as a painter, and like paint some really cool and interesting stuff.
For me, this comes down to your models matter, right? I always hated, like, when I started with Tyranids and painting 40, 50, 60 gaunts, like, man, I'm spending a lot of time on these individual dudes that none of them are going to matter because they're going to die with a glance, right? They're losing one doesn't mean anything to me. But in Trench Crusade, losing a model does mean something, right? It's also one of the reasons why I shifted towards playing like Chaos Knights or Chaos Demons, but like Kaiju Demons, right? In 40k. Trench Crusade fills the needs of my models matter. I love games with stories with them, and I make my own story with the Trench Crusade, right? Every action I make, if this guy dies, it matters, right? If this guy gets taken out of my elite gets taken out of action, he could potentially lose an eye or get PTSD and not even
paranoid, battle shocked.
Yeah, I had a dude who David shot in the face with a goddamn sniper, and he got so scared. He rolled PTSD on his injury. He didn't show for the next 4 games.
Yeah, he got shell shocked.
And then he
also love that shell shock's in the game. PTSD is the modern term.
Yeah.
So shell shocked would have been like the commonly used term of that time, but you're right, it is the same.
And then
thing.
he finally got into the game. Like, oh, cool, you finally got in the game. Round 2 of that game, immediately taken out of action from a sniper, and then he didn't show up, and he became irrelevant.
There's just so much of a story to be made in Trench Crusade, which I think is another reason why people are, they're tired of the L-shaped ruin, so to speak.
Yeah.
And while I don't think the L-shaped ruin is really that bad, like, while we've seen like a kind of a shift from our play group, we've noticed that a lot of people in our like play group want a more narrative gaming experience. Like, we try to do a Crusade for 40k, but like 10th edition doesn't really like want you to do a Crusade. It wants you to do Crusade if you do a ton of legwork. Like, you need somebody like Logan, who's a veteran 40k player, has been to narrative events, has played a bunch of different game systems, is familiar with like miniature wargaming and like very intimately, that can make a very good and fun narrative event.
Yeah.
Trench Crusade just has that baked in. It's saying, no, you want and should play campaign games where your dudes get skills and become stronger and tell stories and gain stories that they've accomplished. Like, one of my favorite war bands that I've played was my Iron Wall, in which I like made up rumors that my soldiers would spread about my captain, and like I think it was that the position of commanding officer was cursed, that the commanding officer was doomed to die in any major engagement they got in. First battle, he does get out of action. So he does go down, but then in the post-game sequence, he rolls full recovery. This is after he was like a beast on the battlefield. So he survives. He breaks the curse. Every game after that, he never got out of action. It was just like this insanely narrative
The game's
moment.
designed around Crusade. It's not designed around one and done. You can do one and done. It's great. I'm glad that it has it. It's not designed around that. It's designed around Crusading. Hence the name Trench Crusades. What's up, Logan?
Yeah, so the thing to compound on that is we can play the same warband, same variant of that warband, and our end state will be very different, right? Ymir Strongneck was the leader of my warband. He had been thrown off of a building very early in our campaign and died. Fully recovered. He became Ymir Strongneck after that, and for the rest of the time, he would get up onto giant buildings and absolutely just dome people. And the playstyle was very different. Like, David, I think you said you didn't play into the Siege Gazelle team portion of it?
Yeah, so when I played Iron Wall, I never used a Siege Gazelle team, I think once. Yeah. I basically ran like a very like defensive list. Granted, Logan did too, but I would cut off a line of sight with my captain, whose name I think was Paul Connolly. He was an Irish, captured Irish like boy turned into a captain, and because it's like I think I just got luckier on skills than you did, because my dudes turned into like the most insane ranged threats that I didn't need. I didn't need the Siege Gazelle teams, that +1 dice. Like, I think Paul Connolly ended my campaign with like ranged proficiency, hunter, sharp eyes. Like, he wasn't incurring any debuffs on shooting anyway. So he was rolling like 4 to 6 dice every single shooting activation.
Yeah. And the point to this statement is the game will drive, like the way that the game is set up is, even though we're playing the same thing, it will drive you to playing, like you will play differently than a friend playing the same list. Where in like 40k, if we both play Gladius Spirit or Gladius Assault or whatever it's called, that army is going to largely look the same, and it's largely going to play the same.
Or I face a Crusaders army, and I'm expecting 2 tanks, a bunch of Terminators, like every goddamn time. It's the same list. Versus in Trench Crusade, I have
it's like some Wardens, 2 tanks.
We have a guy who's brand new to Trench Crusade who's playing this next campaign with us. Him and I are playing the Heretic Legion's base, and I'm showing him like one of the best ways to build, and he's kind of copying me. But this is game 4 or 5, and we have almost 2 entirely different armies now, or warbands now, just because the game forces us in different directions.
Yeah. I am not a power gamer for Trench Crusade at all. I very much like the narrative fueled lists.
I am not. I don't intentionally power game. I just like my big funny models.
Dude hits us with. I show him the optimal way to build a list. I'm not a power gamer.
It's because I showed him how to the most optimal list. Doesn't mean I'm making the most optimal list. I'm telling him how to power game. I am not doing the same.
Yeah.
I actually have Heretic Troopers for once in my life.
L plus ratio.
Oh, okay.
It's just such a unique game, and I think that's why I like it so much. I like games that are intuitive and feel fun and unique, and Trench Crusade fits that bill to the T.
Yeah, no. It just, I think I'm not going to say it's masterfully crafted. There are obvious things that they have looked over. But for the time it's had in development, I think the game is very well put together.
And with that, I think that's going to end off our first episode of the Militant Miniatures podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
And, be sure to give us some feedback. I'm sure that my 2 co-hosts will be here. We could use it. We could definitely be knocked down a peg or 2. Obviously, we were big-headed enough to start a podcast. So thank you for listening.
The more y'all input, the more we can improve. Much love. Peace.
And hit that like button.